And start. So at this time, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Carson City School District Board of Trustees. And we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and start with agenda item number 1. This is adoption of the agenda. This is for possible action. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, or motion made by, Trustee Varner, seconded by Trustee Roberts. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. Motion passes unanimously.
Ms. President, just for clarity, that was public comment on the agenda item only.
Correct.
Jeez.
Yeah, so this was public comment on the agenda item only. Yep, sorry. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 2, the flag salute by Trustee Varner.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 3. This is our superintendent's report for information only. Superintendent Fueling.
Thank you, President Walt. The school year has concluded. So you could hear a collective cheer from students and maybe staff alike in some cases. But really, just a great year, very exciting. Thank you to, it's been a year, and thank you to all of you for your support, support for our staff, for support for our students throughout the school year. It's been a very busy couple weeks with all the end of the year celebrations, schools having their promotion ceremonies, just a lot of fun. And I know probably some of you will comment on this, but I'll just give a quick shout out to Carson High. Their grad walkthroughs at the elementary schools was the most precious thing. And the evening graduation ceremony was fantastic by any account I'm aware of. So thanks to everyone involved in making that happen. Last 2 days we've spent up at the superintendent's conference up in Tahoe and doing a lot of good work talking about statewide policy and I think hope for better things and changes as the legislative session approaches. So just a good couple days talking with people all around Nevada that are dealing with very similar issues in many cases, sometimes unique, but just a really good time and lots of good people trying to do good things for kids. So that is all I have.
I do have a question regarding your conference. Because it was all the school districts through the state, right? Are all of the school districts seeing decrease in enrollment?
With a few exceptions, some of the really small, remote rural districts have had an uptick. In those cases, oftentimes it's due to a single family moving into town.
Oh, yeah.
Like Esmeralda County has 68 students for the whole school district, so that can impact that. All of the districts that are, I think, say over 1,000 students, I believe all of them have declining enrollment. The last district that was kind of the holdout was Lyon County. There's been so much growth out in Lyon County, still very affordable housing as you get further east. But Lyon County actually did have a slight downtick this year, but Clark and Washoe overall certainly have Nye, us, Elko. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other trustee questions for Superintendent Fueling? All right, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4. This is board reports, board member comments for information only. We'll start with NASB update. Trustee Varner, do you have NASB update?
Yeah, just a small one. Just a reminder, the training that's going to be upcoming on September 5th, that's on a Saturday. It's going to be in Lovelock, Nevada. The conference will cover governance training, and it's going to be multi-level for newer people and people who've been on the board for a long period of time. So it should have good training for everyone in every district. Friday night prior, there'll be a social and barbecue at the Marson House. Apparently they have lots of antiques and it's supposed to be a really cool place to visit. And then the newsletter should be coming out later this week or first part of next week. And everybody's still working on the December conference, getting that planned. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Do we have any school reports? Oh, you do? All right, let's go ahead and start.
All right, well, I had the pleasure of meeting with Principal Hoppy at Eagle Valley Middle School yesterday. Had a nice little chat, kind of a little introductory meeting. I walked there from my house, so it was really awesome. She said she just wanted to make sure that she lets all of her parents and families know that she appreciates all of the support they've had. They had a lot of participation in the end of the year promotion recognitions, both the awards assembly and the promotion parade. As she begins planning for future promotion events, she'd love to hear any feedback we have to improve them. A survey has actually been posted in Parent Square to collect thoughts, suggestions, and recommendations from this year's events to improve them for next year. So she looks forward to getting a lot of good feedback from her community. She wants to make sure everybody saves the date for this back to school boot camp on August, I can't believe we were saying back to school already, on August 13th. And she'll be sharing more information with her families throughout the summer. And then she really wanted to thank her Eagle Valley staff for a great year. And then this morning, I had the pleasure of going to Al Seeliger Elementary School, met with their leadership team, took a nice little tour around the campus. She said they've, just like every school, been very, very busy, had a very successful field day that was organized by their PE teacher, Mr. Race, as well as the PTO. The event featured a community barbecue and a special opportunity for the students to see mules. So one of their community partners brought their mules to campus so the kids could see them and play with them. For the ACES baseball trip, they're magnificent mateys, as they call them. So those students who had really good attendance and behavior reports, they took 123 of their students to go see the ACES game in Reno. I can't even imagine what it's like to corral 123 middle school kids, but I'm impressed. And then they had a lot of great participation from their pre-K, their kinder, and their 5th grade promotion, well attended by families, and overall just had a great time celebrating all the successes of their students. So that's it.
Great, thank you.
From the Silver Campus, Dr. Molden would love to share that the Silver Campus was able to acknowledge the community partner. This year, they celebrated Stacy Rich, the operations director for the Nevada Builders Alliance. Through Stacy's partnership, she was able to secure representatives from local trades and community services, such as a Happy Outlet, Roper HVAC, Coastal Air, and the Nevada Department of Public Safety. I also introduced her to Hope Sullivan, the Director of Community and Economic Division, and she is grateful that she was able to make the connection. The students have had an opportunity of a lifetime to learn about different careers and opportunities within our community, thanks to the partnerships mentioned above. She is very proud for all the support that they receive from the community and can't wait to give back. I also want to thank Mrs. Stokes for inviting me to interview the JAG students. They did an activity where people interview them just so that they can get used to the interview process, and it was very interesting. I really enjoyed meeting with those students, and I can honestly tell you, we have some stellar students in that campus. I met with a student who is very ambitious. She wants to work on her real estate license and start selling homes. And then another student is ready to apply for Jumpstart. So really, really exciting. Another student wants to be a pilot. So very, very impressive kids. So I had a wonderful time speaking with them. And like Superintendent mentioned, the graduation from Carson High was just incredible. Parents that I spoke with were very, very happy and very pleased that they were able to actually see their students, cross the stage, and they're very appreciative for the outstanding performance. And I personally had not seen so many people gather here in Carson City, with the exception of Nevada Day Parade. So it was just magnificent. And also the promotion events at Eagle Valley Middle School and Carson Middle School. Kudos to the principals and their staff. They did a magnificent job. So
Thank you.
All right, this is Dr. Ward's final send-off. She says, Fremont, wow, what an end to a fabulous year. Our students, after the direction of our music teacher, Ashley Cousins, sang Bruno Mars, You Can Count on Me, and For Good from Wicked in a surprise assembly in honor of my retirement. It was spectacular. So very special. I again want to thank our staff and students along with their families for not only a fabulous year, but a very special 9 years at Fremont. Fremont really is a special place. And she sent out a really kind message on Parent Square as well, and reminiscing on some of her favorite highlights and things. And I just want to take a minute to publicly thank her for all she's done for my kids, for Fremont, and her encouragement and support in my role here on the board. So thank you, Dr. Ward, and best of luck. No?
Not too much. Carson High is my school, and we were all a part of their biggest news in the last couple weeks. That graduation on Friday evening, as it's been mentioned, very, very well attended, impressively well attended. Some other highlights, Superintendent Fueling already mentioned the graduation walk, where they got to go back to their elementary schools and parade through the halls. At the end of that grad walk was a parade down Carson Street. I got there about 20 minutes before the buses were supposed to be passing through, and it was really neat to see the diversity and people that came out to support that part of their celebration. There was, I don't know if it was a homeschool group or maybe like a private kindergarten or something, but there was a collection of probably 20 young kids with their teachers that were going nuts about the buses, and there were grandparents, and people came out of the legislature in their suits and ties just to be out there for it. So that was really neat. And when the buses finally did come, the amount of kids that were squeezed into each window so that they could have their faces out and see everybody and wave. I was texting one of my friends. I was like, I almost got emotional. The big dopey grins on those faces, like just from these kids that would normally look way too tough to get excited about something like that, but they were just all in and there for it. And so I was really appreciative that the community showed up for that. So thank you to anybody here or watching that came out and made that a priority. And thank you to Kendra Tuttle for organizing that. I'm also on the committee for grad night. So after Friday night, we bussed about 100 kids up to Reno. We went to Fly High, where we partied way too long and got into bed about 4 o'clock the next morning. But the kids had so much fun. So kudos to the Safe Grad Committee for all the hard work on that, and for all our community sponsors who make that a free event that so many kids can attend. I think we definitely found a winner in Fly High. Usually kids, they kind of start trickling out a little bit early. I mean, it helped that they couldn't leave on their own. We had to bus them on this one. But we had early buses that could leave, but the majority of the kids stayed all the way to the very end. So that was really great. And the only other note I have, I didn't reach out to the school because I didn't want to bug them. I kind of thought they were a little busy. So these are just notes that I've picked up. Carson Fire got to do a Touch a Truck event with the special needs group. I can never remember the right name for them. Advanced Adult, what is it? ASP? Alternate Standards Program. Thank you. Yes, the ASP kids got to come out, and Carson Fire brought fire engines, and they got to come and an ambulance and see the engines and touch the trucks and get in the driver's seats. And so thank you, Carson Fire, for making that happen too. We really appreciate the community that embraces our school. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I don't have any from the schools because I didn't want to bug them either. But I was able to attend the Fritch fifth grade graduation or promotion ceremony. And I got to tell you, it was very well done. A lot of parents showed up and other family members. I was surprised at how many people actually attended that event. And the same with the Carson Middle School promotion ceremony. It was a little bit warm in the gym, but there was a lot of people in there, very well attended. And I think they did a great job in their promotion ceremony also. And that's all I have.
Well, my excuse isn't because I didn't want to bug anybody. My excuse is I totally forgot. So I do not have a school report on that. So sorry, Empire Elementary School, but Tuesday flu kind of came right in like a ton of bricks. And here we are. So no, I do not have a school report either. So sorry. So
If I could too, just really want to thank the staff overall for a great year. It's so much work, but it's so much good work, and just really appreciate everything that has happened this year, and wish everyone a very restful summer as they get away from the schools.
yes, I second that. Yes, thank you to everyone for a successful year. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 5, association reports. For discussion only? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 6. This is public comment. And we do have, before we get there, do we have any public comment online? Email.
Yes, President Walt, thank you. I had one emailed public comment came in from Catherine Harding. That information was forwarded to the board and will be included in the permanent record.
All right, great, thank you. All right, now it will be time for public comment. And when you come up, if you could please make sure that you see the green light on the microphone. Yep, and then you will be given 3 minutes, and there's your clock. Thank you so much. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Marianne Giddens. I am here tonight regarding proposed changes to the recess policy. I am in support of leaving the recess policy as is, with hard lines protecting the verbiage which guarantees 3 15-minute recesses per day. I am completely against any policy change which will reduce the amount of daily recess. When the proposed revision to the policy was originally made on March 24th, it was to reduce recess time from 45 minutes to 30 minutes. The recess proposal, which will be presented here later tonight, is attempting to eliminate the verbiage at least 3 15-minute recesses per day, morning, during lunch, and afternoon. The policy proposal only states that students will be given the opportunity for daily recess, but does not call out how many minutes. Why would this verbiage be removed? Additionally, since the initial reading, a recess regulation has now been created and will also be presented tonight. This proposed regulation calls out 45 minutes of daily recess. However, it is unclear how those 45 minutes will be implemented, at the discretion of whom, and are these guaranteed minutes in each school day. Why do the proposed policy and regulation not share the same verbiage? If they are being updated and revised, isn't the intention to ensure that they are in complete alignment? Based upon the research I've done, it indicates that if CCSD policy and regulation do not align, then the policy would be implemented because the regulation is subordinate to the policy. And in this case, that would mean that the kids are only guaranteed daily recess, but no actual definition of what that means and how many minutes. Even if I'm mistaken in my statement, the policy and the regulation should be in alignment, and that is the whole purpose behind making the change to the regulation and the policy as demonstrated in the presentation on March 24th. I feel that these policies and regulations are being carefully worded to make it appear as though all will remain the same, but I cannot help out call out the very clear omission of the actual number of recess minutes in the proposed policy. Why? And by clear omission, I mean the verbiage has strike-through lines. The proposed regulation also states that recess shall not be withheld for academic performance, punitive reasons, or as a whole class disciplinary consequence. And I can personally provide you with examples to tell you that this is not true and is not happening. Studies have repeatedly shown the value of recess. Why is this even up for discussion? Why are we continuously making decisions that negatively impact the ones who have the least power, the kids. We spend so much time tallying attendance and test scores, and while academics do matter, if our goal is well-rounded youth, so do the other things. We are the adults in the room, and I'm asking you to stand up and take care of the kids. It feels like such a small request, and I'm disheartened that this topic even requires such a fight. Please protect and guarantee the recess minutes. It's continually noted that there's a decline in enrollment, and the decisions that appear small, like recess,
I'm sorry.
matter to people making those decisions on whether to keep their kids in the district. Thank you
Please-
very
yes,
much.
thank you, but please respect the 3 minutes. Any additional public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 7. This is discussion and presentation on the secondary school Spanish, AP Spanish Psychology, and AP Psychology curriculum materials to be adopted for the 2026-2027 school year is budgeted not to exceed $150,000 for discussion only. This is brought to us by Mr. Brandon Bringhurst, Linda Fields, and Rhonda Wallace. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Fueling. It's good to be here. My name is Brandon Bringhurst, Chief Academic Officer. We're discussing the adoption of new textbook materials for our Spanish programs, grades 6 through 12, as well as our psychology program at the high school. It's been a process working through this adoption together with the teachers and the coordinators. So I have with me this evening Rhonda Wallace and Linda Fields, two of our curriculum coordinators, that will share with you a little bit more about the process and the adoption.
Thank you. I always mess that thing up too. Good evening, I'm Rhonda Wallace. I am the coordinator for computer science, actually all the electives, world languages, and oh my gosh, you guys, I hate talking in front of you. Anyway, I was in charge of the Spanish. And so first of all, the reason that we were looking at adoption is because the current curriculum resources that we have are expiring this month. And also, in addition, the AP Spanish exam is changing a little. There's some significant changes coming up. So that was the reason that we were looking at adopting things. For the Spanish exam, which was the major driving force behind it, I wanted to show you guys what the old requirements were and what these new ones are going to be coming up. So as you can see, the multiple choice questions, there will be fewer of them, but they will be expected to interpret audio, text, and images through multiple choice questions. The free response, I feel like, is the biggest, because in the past, they only had to write an email, write a presentational persuasive essay, and then answer 5 prompts. But now they're going to have to actually create a presentation on a project. They are going to have to present that in Spanish. They're going to have to answer 4 questions in regards to that particular presentation, and they're going to have to write an argumentative essay in Spanish. So the free response portion of it is significantly more difficult. So we felt it was important to also have those supporting levels of Spanish actually work up to that higher rigor that's going to be expected. So as the adoption team got together, we obviously followed the NDE requirements for adopting new materials. NDE requires you to have look at all the resources that they have already pre-approved. So in other words, they go ahead and say, okay, this particular company has this product, and this product that meets all the standards that we require here in Nevada. So from that pre-approved list, you can see the particular companies that had those skills. Cengage, Vista Higher Learning, which most people call VHL, Wayside, Savas, and Carnegie/EMC. Carnegie is the only one that we never got a response from, so we did not have the opportunity to review their materials. We reached out. Paige Kamara reached out. I reached out. Paige reached out a second time. I got online for them and filled out a little find our rep thing on their website. We never heard back. So obviously we did not. I have linked in this thing, panel reviews. I didn't know if you guys wanted to see them, so I linked them there just in case. They're kind of extensive. It's our rubric that everybody filled out as they were reviewing each of the products. So I put them there in case you guys want to look at it later. But I know we don't have very much time here, but it's there for you to look at. We ended up choosing for Spanish 1A, 1B, which is middle school, Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and Honors 3, the Encuentros from VHL. We decided to stay with the Galleria, but the 2025 version for our Heritage 1 and 2. The total cost for those will be I don't want to say that large number out loud, but it's $120,040.64. For the AP, however, Wayside was the only company that was revamping their AP textbooks to align with the new AP exam. So I don't have an example of that book for you. I only have an online version that we can send out to you guys if you would like to look at it, because it's actually being printed right now. But we have an advanced online version if you guys would like to see it. I thought I had linked it here as well, but I don't see the little blue stuff, so I must have forgotten to do that. And then the AP will be $8,049.21. Okay. The textbook committee, what I did is I just sort of summarized the reasons why the committee decided to go with VHL and Wayside. So they felt like VHL had the best resources, which include activities, visuals, audios, the way that they had lined up the sequence of the skills so that they build on each other, so that vertical alignment was a lot better. And the rigor was higher, which obviously with those new rigorous expectations for the AP exam, we really need that for building up to that. The vocab and the grammar were actually integrated, not like separate. So it wasn't like the teacher had to teach grammar and then they teach vocab and then they teach the writing and the reading. It's all integrated together. So that was really nice. They also loved that the choices and their options for different units, which they call challenges in the VHL, they were broken down into smaller chunks so that they could be presented to the students in smaller chunks. So again, that sequence of skill is working best because with the vertical alignment up to AP, because they can bring it down in smaller, get the kids, right? Get the knowledge to them, and then build on it with the next small chunk, and then build on it with the next small chunk, rather than this big, huge, giant thing, right? And then the kids kind of get lost sometimes halfway through it. So they really enjoyed that. Sorry. And there was a lot more opportunities for the argumentative writing, which obviously, as I already said, is one of those new requirements for the AP exam. And there's lots of options for projects for students to do in Spanish in the VHL, which again, is a great thing for that vertical alignment to the AP exam. Obviously, I think the Wayside I already said, she chose it because it was the only one that was coming out with an updated to go along with the AP exam. So that was her reasoning behind that. And that was really fast because I talk really fast. Is there any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But I think this is more for Mr. Bringhurst.
Okay.
Where it says not to exceed 150,000, is that for all three?
That is, yes, the
The
psychology as well as the Spanish,
And AP psychology as
and
well?
AP psychology as well.
So all three curriculums are not going to exceed 150,000?
That's correct.
So what is included in that 150? Textbooks only, digital licensing, teacher materials?
So all of that. So the textbooks, the teacher materials, we were able, especially on the Spanish side, to really take a close look at what the teachers have and what the teachers want to use from that. So our original quote was significantly higher than that. Our original quote was over 200,000 for the Spanish alone. But working together with Rhonda and the World Language Chair at Carson High, we were able to streamline exactly what they will truly need for those classes, and our current quote includes all of those items.
And for how many years?
Our adoption, I think we did a 6-year for
Okay.
the Spanish.
All right, so, sorry, mine covered all three, but go ahead and we'll start. Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a question. I noticed on the AP Psych, and I know you guys haven't done the presentation yet, it looks like it's a class set for the most part, right? And then they'll have access to online. But the cost for the Spanish, like how many students are currently enrolled in those Spanish classes? Is this like a take-home textbook for each of them or a digital copy for each of them? You know,
They will all, they will all have digital access. But it's also workbooks for Spanish for the writing. And it's a class set for textbooks.
so it's really, a lot of it is like the consumables that are going to go with it that you'll have to repurchase.
Yes.
Cost will be that, okay.
Yeah.
So that means then, okay, on that note then, so it's not to exceed 150,000 this year, but if they're consumable, then is it going to be an ongoing cost year after year for 6 years?
No, it's the consumables that they will get and continue to be able, like, I don't know how to explain it. They will get them. Go ahead, Brandon.
The subscription includes the
Yes.
consumables for the
That's the word I was
duration of
looking
the
for.
6 years. Yeah,
Sorry,
so
that's
it's
the
not,
word.
it's not an ongoing cost each year. It's just this initial purchase, and then we will get those consumables each year after that.
Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any additional questions? Go ahead.
Is there a cap on those consumables, like a certain limit of students that if we meet it, we risk?
Yeah, we certainly could, if the enrollment in the Spanish classes goes up significantly within our 6-year time frame, there may be a scenario where we need to then purchase additional textbooks or workbooks beyond what we have. But given the historical information that we have, and the department chair there at the high school is very good and has a great sense of where we've been at historically. So we're confident with the numbers that we have, although if that changes, we certainly can go back to the vendor and get additional workbooks as needed, because our commitment is obviously to make sure that the students have those resources that they need in order to be successful. And that's a big part of the reason for this adoption, like Rhonda explained, that with changes in what they're expected to do at the end, we wanted to make sure that we're aligning not just that AP level, but to build up to that, we need to make sure we're aligned starting in 7th grade with that buildup.
Okay, I was going to ask too, initially you had said at the high school level, and then you just mentioned 7th grade. So on this sheet that I was looking through, it mentions 8 different Spanish classes, between 1A, 1B, Heritage, 1, 2, AP, 3, Honors, so many. Are those all at the high school level, or does that include the middle school? So what we're looking at is can span 7 grades?
Yeah, so Spanish 1A and 1B are offered at the middle school. So that's, students start that in 7th grade, and then by taking 1A and 1B at the middle school, then they're prepared to move into Spanish 2 when they get to the high school. And the World Language Department has really done a great job of vertically aligning that all the way from 7th grade at both of the middle schools to be aligned with what they're doing at the high school, all the way up to the AP level.
Go ahead.
The psychology workbooks and everything, that's just high school, is that correct?
Psychology is only high school, yes.
And then I'm just curious, the $150,000 that's budgeted, was that this year's budget or the upcoming budget?
So because the purchase of these books will include purchase of physical books, we need to have those books received before the end of the fiscal year. We won't have time to get them received before the end of the fiscal year, so they will be purchased out of next year's budget, and it's part of the education services budget that we'll be using to make that purchase.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And when, do you, so what I'm understanding is you are not anticipating any ongoing annual costs in the next, correct?
Correct, not an ongoing annual cost. One of the challenges currently with the way textbooks are structured, because a lot of our textbooks are not only print but also digital, is those digital licenses expire, and then you have to renew, right? If everything is just print, you can keep the print for as long as you want. But the digital licenses expire. These won't expire for 6 years, so we'll have that for 6 years. But we have each year, we have a series of different subject areas and grade levels whose texts are expiring. So we attack those 1 year at a time, depending on what we have expiring, and if there have been any changes that have been made in the expectations for curriculum.
Great, thank you for answering all those. And
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and go on to the next one.
Good evening. My name is Linda Fields, and I support the K-12 Social Studies curriculum here for Carson City School District. And I'm here to present on the textbook adoption for AP Psychology and regular psychology courses. So like Spanish, the last adoption was in 2019, and at that time, only one purchase of classroom texts, AP texts, and it was the Meyer Psychology for the AP course 3rd edition. And all of the sections, including the regular psychology sections, used the same textbook. The original textbook adoption was at $6,200, approximately, or $6,223. The current number of course sections have increased. Prior to 2019, there was only one section of AP. Now they have 2 sections of AP with 4 full courses of regular psychology. So the adoption that we were looking at for was twofold. One, we'll get into, is about how the AP psychology has changed and how we need to meet those instructional needs. But it was also really about those students in those 4 sections of psychology and meeting their instructional needs in terms of providing them a better resource instructional material for them to access the learning. So again, the AP Psychology course examination and instructional framework, it changed back in 2024, 2025. And so it went from 9 units to 5 units. Some of the content curriculum is similar, it's been updated, but now there's a separate mental health unit that's been added. So being able to navigate with a current text that follows the year-long curriculum for AP Psychology will be a huge lift. Likewise, too, some of the content knowledge is out of date, especially with regards to mental health. There's some added information on the content themes such as stress and some of those areas of social psychology. And then two, really that two-pronged was really that the students enrolled in the psychology course, Carson High has really been wonderful in recruiting more students, more diverse learners. And so in an effort to meet those instructional needs of those diverse learners, we went to look for a text that wasn't necessarily written at a high college level, but the one that was just more accessible versus visual organization, readability, and sentence structure. There are no Nevada academic content standards for the area of psychology. So for that reason, the process through NDE and their new index, they have an NVAX tool now for a review. That part was waived, and so we just continued to follow the Carson City School District textbook adoption process. So we convened a committee. We reviewed 5 textbooks with the Bedford Williams and the BFW's Bedford, Friedman, and Williams, and then Nat Geo's Engage. Both of the AP texts are both on the AP College Board recommended texts as well as the NDE list, but from prior editions. However, NDE does not have any recommended text for regular psychology. So for that reason, we sort of took it along the lines of a new textbook adoption. And then two, our rubric included, we looked really very closely at the content validity of the 5 units, and then 2, readability, diversity, organization, ethics, and additional instructional resources. And so based on those selections, based on the 2 texts that you see before you, and I encourage you to really look at the regular psychology text. The reason being is it's actually a really, like if you're a textbook nerd, I know some of you are, it's an incredible textbook, you guys, and I'm telling you, it's just like, compared to the AP, if you spend time looking at the 2 psychology texts, they're just, it's amazing. It's straightforward. The way it's written is just amazing. So the two that we did adopt was the Meyer Psychology for the AP course, fourth edition. Again, we had previously had the third edition. What's nice about this is updated exactly for the new current AP assessment. And again, the rubric rating was 35 out of 36. Like the content validity was there. The other piece is the scientific practices that are embedded throughout the text. It does a really good job of modeling how those science practices apply to the content. And then the second was also a BFW at 2025, thinking about psychology. And this one is written expressly for high school students. And so it wasn't initially on our radar, but if you take a look at it, it's written much more straightforward. The infographics are amazing. The statistics, the introduction to statistics part is just, it's so readable and understandable for students. So they can make some really good correlations of what they're learning in statistics in their algebra classes. And it's just a really, I encourage you guys to take it home. No one will be using it until August. So, but yeah, so those are the two courses that, the textbooks that we chose. So we really, in the interest of fiscal, what could we do with what little we could, is that we are doing the same thing with the 40 hardcover textbooks at approximately $6,700, and then the teacher's edition. We also purchased, or we were going to purchase, what we got for free was the test bank for Myers Psychology for the AP course. You'll notice in the AP course that we did not purchase any online licenses, and that's because the bulk of the work that the students do, those resources directly come from College Board. So it's mostly done very strictly along the resources that what College Board offers. However, if you look at the thinking about psychology, is that we do order the 40 textbooks, which is 30 plus 10, so there's that extra 10 in case books get lost. But we do, we would like to purchase the 20 Achieve online student licenses, and those for students who benefit from text-to-speech, who students perhaps that could be on IEPs, students identified as English language learners, or other students that are perhaps struggling readers, so that would be able to benefit from those online licenses. And again, that sub-cost is $6,091. So psychology and AP psychology is relatively inexpensive, coming in at $13,146.32. Hey. Just saying.
All right, thank you, and love the enthusiasm over textbooks.
It's a good textbook, right?
No.
The statistics, even if you just look at the statistics, it's amazing, but yeah.
No, we surely appreciate the adoption committee reviewing it and bringing it to the board. So thank you all for your time and again, your enthusiasm over textbooks. Do we have any questions on that end? Go ahead.
Hopefully a super easy one. On the sheet where it tells which textbooks you guys have selected, for AP, it's 4th edition, published in 24. For standard psychology, it's 5th edition, standard, or published in 25. Are those the most current editions that they have?
That is correct. And if, to go back, if we were to look at the review of the Cengage curriculum, it was back at 2019, 2022. And so Cengage really just hasn't caught up. And then two, what's nice about this additional separate mental health unit. And what's beautiful about the regular psychology is they call it the 5 pillars of psychology versus units, right? So the AP text is really designed for AP. And so in that design, that was the biggest issues between the Nat Geo Cengage. That and BFW is just what's used. It's used in Washoe, it's used in Douglas. I would like to brag just a little bit that both Washoe and Douglas are using the 2nd edition BFW AP, and they don't have a regular psychology text. So that could help a little bit more to so yeah.
All right. Do they update pretty often? Is this a 6-year as well?
Yes, and the subscription for the online is 6 years. So, yeah. And we got, and I get to, I would just like to honor the work that Paige Conroy does for the school district. She gets a lot of free stuff for us. So I was impressed at how much, for such a small adoption, we were able to get both teachers edition free. We were able to get the AP test bank for free. So I just at this time would like to take that time to honor her for all of her work that she does on behalf of the students in Carson City School District.
Thank you. So the question I have because 6 years kind of seems like a long time, right? So how do you evaluate whether or not, the materials or the new textbooks improve the outcomes? And then if they don't, how long do you give it? How much time do you give it to where you look and say, okay, maybe this wasn't the best choice.
So going back to the AP cycle, right? So we're not, so there's things that are outside of our influence. For example, when College Board updates AP exams. And so in this case, and sometimes AP exams, like we just looked about in Spanish, for example, right, where we know where the updates are coming, that currently, the practitioner, Mr. Hauk, he's able to work with the existing textbook that he has, but it's literally falling apart. So I mean, I know they're being used, so they're falling apart. So it really, we're sort of at the 6 years license, what we will have is a guarantee that especially for the psychology students, because remember the 6 year license is only for a regular psychology class. Their curriculum isn't dependent upon the whims of College Board. So I feel very comfortable with the 6 year. Same thing too, like as we move to renew the online licenses for like US history or world history, same thing, that those standards we know aren't going to radically change. And then two, it's the more that we're utilizing our instructional technology with, Magic School AI, Notebook LM, that interface between having that online license and student accessibility, we're really coming to more of a forehead. So I think that, I don't know what the cycles are for College Board. I don't have that information, but I mean, they're not, the last time, third edition was 2019, so I'm assuming then 24, 25, you're looking at a 5-6 year renewal.
If I could add a little bit more of the, your question is more general, not just with AP psychology, but textbook adoptions in general. One of the reasons that we tend to go towards a 5 to 6 year adoption is the longer contract we sign, the better rate that we get. When we go year by year, it is significantly more expensive. It depends on the text and the publisher, but the year to year is significantly more expensive. So it's a balance of going longer gets us a better rate, but then it also ties us into something for longer, and we do need to be agile enough to change if that adoption isn't getting us the results that we want. As Ms. Fields explained, when the outcome changes or the exam that we're working towards changes, then that's something that would certainly precipitate us taking a hard look at it. The other thing that we do to evaluate when it's time to adopt an entirely new curriculum is really some input from our teachers. So there's a variety of curriculums that we've talked with the teachers about this year, and they, in some cases, and she referenced some of the other social studies courses where the teachers are very happy with what they currently have, and so we're choosing to extend licenses as opposed to go through a full new adoption. That's helpful because every time you adopt, there's a whole new learning curve for the teachers. If what we have is working, we don't want to put that stress on the system. It also really kind of depends on where that particular content area is. For instance, our high school math, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry was technically due for adoption this year, but they're super engaged right now in their PLC work and really identifying their essential standards. They wanted to get that work done first so that they could use that to help them evaluate their next textbook. So we're pushing that off a little bit because of where they're at. So we've tried to be really intentional in working with each content area, what is working for them and when are they ready to adopt. Can we push things off a little bit, especially given some of our financial constraints that we have right now? We don't want to just adopt things just because. It's been 5 years, so let's adopt something new. If it's been 5 years, but what we have is still working well, then there's no need to adopt something new. Or it's maybe been 5 years, but where we're at with our curriculum development, we need another year so that we can properly vet, then we're giving it that time to do so.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Do we have any additional comments, questions? All right, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yes. All right, we'll go ahead and close agenda item number 7 and move on to agenda item number 8. This is for discussion on proposed changes to the CCSD policy 260 recess. Oh.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I have to get the books. They're GPs. He needs them for the summer.
Okay. We'll wait here. All right, sorry about that. So agenda item number 8 is discussion on proposed changes to Carson City School District Policy 260 recess policy. This is for first reading for discussion only, brought to us by Christy Perkins. But I do want to mention, due to the fact that it was brought up in public comment, the fact that this was brought to us by Trustee Roberts, who noticed within the current policy that recess should not be considered a child's personal, should be considered a child's personal time and should not be withheld for academic and punitive reasons, and it was being done so, and she had noticed within her child's school, and this is why it is being brought forward for discussion for that reason.
Good evening, Christy Perkins, Director of MTSS Engagement and Student Wellness for the school district. Tonight, we will be looking at policy 260. We would like to take some time to update this policy as it hasn't been updated in the last 10 years. And some things have changed in schools in the last 10 years, and we wanted to make sure it was better aligned with our current practices and our MTSS framework. We saw that you see the policy there in front of you. We're just making a few suggested changes there. It was getting a bit long in the policy, so we have separated that into a regulation, which will be our next agenda item. So the policy there, the only real changes there is the Board of Trustees, now referred to as the board. And we've added recess is a foundational Tier 1 part of development and is in alignment with the goals outlined in our district wellness policy, Policy 245. In addition, there are some strikeouts in the policy proposed that are, as I said, aligned and addressed in the regulation that we'll discuss next. And at the end there, the opportunity, elementary students will be given the opportunity for daily recess during the regular school day. Questions on the policy at this time?
Well, actually, we're going to do both.
Okay.
Because we do, I think there was, speaking with there was concern aboard with board members that the policy doesn't align with the regulations, and so we would like to be able to do them both together. So we're going to be, for the public, we will be doing agenda item number 8 and number 9 together. Okay? So at this time, did you want to go ahead and go into the regulation? Sure. And then we'll go on with the questions, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Absolutely. The regulation, regulation number 260, is a first reading proposal for a new regulation to support the policy. As you see there, we have all elementary students shall have daily access to safe, supervised, and developmentally appropriate recess. Our first is our district commitment to our students in the district. We know that recess supports the whole child, physical, social, emotional, and behavioral development. It reinforces positive behavior expectations, which is clearly aligned with our MTSS and PBIS frameworks that are adopted in our school district. Recess includes unstructured play opportunities, and that is our commitment as a district. It provides inclusive opportunities for all students to engage in play and social development, and provides safe environmental conditions and well-maintained playground equipment. And we understand the importance of recess daily in our schools and how important that is for development, and that is our district commitments to our community. The district will also provide training for staff on MTSS and PBIS practices during recess. We will have active supervision strategies in place so recess is safe, and it will be inclusive and structured play facilitation. Recess, of course, will be supervised by trained staff who is actively promoting safe, inclusive, and respectful play, actively monitoring and engaging with students, reinforcing positive behavior, intervening early and teaching appropriate social skills, ensuring that all students are included and supported. Students with disabilities shall have equitable access to recess. Accommodations and supports that are needed shall be provided. And recess environments shall be inclusive and accessible for all. Here you'll see that all elementary students will receive 45 minutes of daily recess. Recess shall be considered a protective universal Tier 1 support. And of course, just a quick note, Tier 1 is all. All students receive Tier 1, that's all students. It shall not be withheld for academic performance, punitive reasons, or as a whole class disciplinary consequence. On the backside there, we know there are times when behavioral concerns may arise within the school district. That is requiring the student is in need of additional Tier 2 or Tier 3 interventions or additional supports. 15 minutes or more of recess may be used to provide a research-based intervention strategy, which could be included but not limited to the following examples: reteaching the expectation, providing a restorative practice, or using a logical instruction-based consequence. For those students who then, which is some students might need even additional supports beyond maybe a one-time event, a Tier 2 targeted support could be something like a structured play group or facilitated activities during the recess time, social skills, instructions, and coaching during that time, a check-in, check-out system with a trusted adult, connected to safe and respectful recess behavior, or even as the district, our commitment to increasing adult support or monitoring if needed for particular students. And then there are Tier 3 intensive supports. This is very few students in our district who may need an individualized behavior or support plan, which is integrated into their recess time. That could be alternative or modified recess environment if necessary as part of a very specific plan. You might have direct adult facilitation or support. We do have some students in our district who might need a one-on-one adult during that recess time to keep all students, including themselves, safe. And that would, of course, be in coordination with their IEP, their behavior plan, their parents, counseling support, social workers, those type of supports to be provided as needed, and of course, communicated to the family. With updates to this proposed regulation, it would be in alignment with our Carson City School District Wellness Policy, which does indicate we provide 30 minutes of physical activity for students. So this is in addition, 45 minutes, keeping it as the policy was previously. Our MTSS framework and our positive behavior intervention and support plan, which is all part of our restorative discipline plan that is submitted to the state and approved annually by the school board.
All right, great, thank you. I just wanted to comment, though, the reason we could do both of these agenda items together is because they are both for discussion only. They are not for action. So we're going to go ahead and start with questions, and since this was Trustee Roberts's request as an agenda item, we'll go ahead and start with you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Yes, so as President Walt mentioned, just to give a little context, getting lots of reports, not only at my kid's school, but schools across the district, that this 45 minutes wasn't being honored. A lot of whole group punishment was happening for one or two children's behaviors. And so I felt it was important to stand up for these kiddos and really have their recess protected. So that is why this was brought forward. And I appreciate some of these changes that you made from our March presentation that we didn't get to fully hear from you, but we had the information and we sent you some feedback. So thank you. One thing that I did want to point out that I appreciate was adding that that it shouldn't be taken for that whole class disciplinary consequence. So thank you for adding that. And then also just for clarification of for the public, the policy and the regulation go together just because it's not necessarily the exact verbiage in each one. These both stand, they must be followed together. Thank you. And so my questions, I'll start with the policy here. At the last paragraph, elementary students will be given an opportunity for daily recess during the regular school day. I really like the wording before where it was that morning, lunch, and afternoon, just so that's more specified. Because if you've got that 11 o'clock lunch hour, that is a really long time to go from lunch to the end of the day without getting a break. I just felt it's important to specify that that needs to be a, regularly scheduled breaks throughout the day, morning, lunch, and afternoon. And then moving on to the regulation.
Can I have a point of clarification
Yes.
on that? So you were referring to the policy just right now, correct?
Right now, yeah, that was on the policy on that last paragraph.
And so you would like to keep
I
at
would
least
like to
3
keep that wording of morning, lunch, and afternoon,
and not have it,
not
striking
change
them.
it to
Thank you.
that
Okay.
daily.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
And then on the regulation, let's see, where do I want to start? I'll start on the second page, that when behavioral concerns arise, they're at the top. 15 or more minutes of recess may be used to provide a research-based intervention. I don't love that. I think if something needs to happen, that it should be used in that afternoon recess time, which would only be 15 minutes, not 15 minutes or more, if that makes sense. I feel like it's giving a little too much for teachers to be able to take away from these kids, because 15 minutes is one recess. And if it's 15 minutes or more, they could be losing, you know, some of their lunch now or some of their morning, and it's just, that's too much. I feel like it should be limited to that afternoon recess time. And also, what does that look like? Is that them staying inside and missing out on their recess, or they're losing their autonomy of recess time where they are still going out, they're getting that fresh air, they're getting movement, but maybe they lose their playground privileges. They need to play on the blacktop or the field, or they're losing their, you don't get to play soccer today because, for whatever reason.
Yes, so that can be situational based on the student and what is happening in the classroom. I will give an example. A student, let's say, that's having a rough morning, being aggressive within the classroom, and in 8 minutes, recess is starting. Does that student need a break? Absolutely. Would it be safe at that moment to say, okay, go ahead and go out and play and have a, free time when you've maybe just been physically aggressive towards your peers? No, that would not be safe for that child or the other children in that classroom. So I hear what you're saying about maybe saving that to the afternoon, but that doesn't always work with alignment of behavior. We might have a student that 8:35 is having a rough go, and we don't want to wait developmentally until 2:30 to provide that intervention. It would not be responsive to maybe what is going on in that classroom. So I think there is some flexibility there, the way it is worded, that it is situational. Now, there are students who maybe are having a rough morning, and we know that what is helpful for that child is to go outside and take a walk with a peer or hang out on the blacktop, but maybe, as you suggested, today you're not playing soccer because you were not using the equipment safely and you're kicking the soccer ball at someone. So today you're going to lose your soccer privilege, but you're still going to go outside. So there is some flexibility in that option. If it becomes an ongoing behavior where this is a daily event with a child really struggling with safe choices, that's where we then might move to that tier 2 level, where it is a more structured recess. It might have more adult support provided. We still then would provide that daily recess, but we might say, okay, we need the social worker out here during the midday recess because that is when this student is struggling. That's a really unstructured time in the cafeteria, and maybe that's too much for some children. So some flexibility, 15 minutes, the or more we added for those kind of really extreme scenarios. We do have times when students become highly dysregulated, and it does not seem reasonable to just say, go out and play. There are situational, of course, in that severe of a case, the administrator would be in contact with the family. If we have a situation where a student is flipping desks and destroying a classroom and we're having to evacuate a classroom, the administrator would be in contact with the family or the IEP team and the plan, and we would be looking at that situationally. We wanted to add that or more because there are days where we might say, today is not a day you're going to be going to an unstructured recess with communication with the family, with part of a plan. That's very rare. That is not the exception, the norm by any means, but there are times when that is happening in our schools. As all of us are aware, we've seen an increase sometimes in mental health concerns, behavioral concerns, since this policy was last written in 2016. We do have some different scenarios going on in our schools.
Okay, so then just for clarification, it's not to take away their recess time. It's just to have it more structured.
Yes, and the way the previous policy was written was very restrictive to our administrative staff, that they could never remove recess, which there are behavioral times that it is unsafe for all children to send a student to recess. That is not what we want to do. We know the importance of recess, daily recess, that break, that fresh air, that movement. We value that, and that needs to happen every day. But there are scenarios where administrators were quite frustrated that the student was having a very difficult day right before recess time and then went out to play, which also can look as a reward to those students who've been impacted by maybe aggressive or physical behavior. Well, why do they get to come out here and play when they just, punched me, or whatever the scenario may be? So we wanted to update that policy so situationally the principal could be in communication with the family and say, rough morning, instead of going out right now for recess, we're going to go play basketball together, and we're going to try to calm down, and whatever the plan is for that individual student, so it's more individualized.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear on that, because in the first paragraph, talking about recess contributes to physical health, social, emotional development, behavioral regulation. So if we're talking about recess is going to help behaviors, I just want to make sure that in their behavior moment, you're still giving them that opportunity for the movement and for the break and everything. So that wanted to make sure those two things aligned. Okay. So then at the bottom paragraph, since I had said I wanted to change that on the policy to morning lunch and afternoon recess, I think maybe switching that bottom paragraph on the regulation as well. All elementary students will receive 3 recesses daily, totaling 45 minutes. Or 3 recesses, morning, lunch, and afternoon. I don't know how you want to word that, but.
Point of clarification?
Yes, go for
Okay,
it.
so elementary, you, on the policy, you would like for it to read, elementary students will be given the opportunity of 3 daily recesses.
Or morning,
that
lunch, and
equate-
afternoon
or
recesses.
equate to 45 minutes.
That equates to 45 minutes, yeah. Because on here it just
Policy
says.
and regulation to align with each other then, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that I had sent in my email to you was just wondering about bumping that up to 20-minute recesses for the kids rather than 15. And I looked at that because the middle and high schools are shorter days than the elementary school. And the elementary schools are our youngest learners. Middle and high school, they have a break every hour or so as they change classes. Then they have their lunch hour. They have more break time. They have about an hour of break time at those schools. And our youngest learners are short of that, and they're in school longer. Their day is very rigorous. You can ask the teachers, this new curriculum is great, but it is intense, and they're feeling it. And even as they're, going through the hallways to go to their specials and whatnot, go to lunch, it's straight lines, arms are folded or to your side, zip lips. Like, there's not a lot of time for recess is their movement. So I just wanted to ask you your thoughts on going up to a 3 20-minute recesses a day.
So the thought I have on that is in March, I know that was a long night, and maybe the presentation was many months ago. Many things have happened since then. I just will remind the board that we are the only district that still has mandatory PE for our elementary students as part of our schedule. All elementary students, we have a certified full-time PE teacher at the school, and one of their specials is PE, which is very rare in the state of Nevada for elementary. I know that does not supplement recess, that is a different time, but weekly they are also engaging in an additional 30 minutes of a structured activity with a full-time teacher doing movement, learning games, cooperative skills, and getting that movement for specials. So in extending this recess to even more than the 45 minutes, if we did look at that option, our day is already longer than other surrounding districts. That would add additional minutes to our day when we try to fit in all the curriculum pieces that are required of us as the state requires. I think it would be very difficult to schedule with our nutrition policy, how many minutes we have to provide for lunch, how much time we have to provide for movement after lunch. It's very specific and outlined by the state. And we have the luxury of still having those full-time PE teachers. I think it would be very hard to schedule for our administrative staff. I don't know that they could fit all those things in one day with all the moving parts and the staffing. I just don't know that it would be possible at this time without extending the day even further than it is, which I know is not something we have an appetite for at this time.
Thank you for addressing that. And then last highlight, I did like the updated to just saying the 45 minutes of recess rather than specifying it needs to be 15, 15, 15. Because I do know some of the schools have made their lunch recess a little longer and doing 20 and doing a shorter afternoon with the 10 minutes. So I appreciate that change. So they have a little bit more autonomy on
Yes.
giving those kids that extra time at lunch.
Our principals appreciated that change as well, the autonomy, because they would like morning, you also have to serve breakfast. You also have kids being dropped off at different times. And if they're getting there early, they do have some movement time built in there. If you're riding the bus, your bus is dropped, So they liked having the flexibility of keeping the 45, but they could extend the lunchtime recess. They might have a quick recess at the end of the day. But on a day that children went to PE, they might say, okay, now your lunch recess is really long because you're going to go to PE right after lunch or something. So they really enjoyed that flexibility of 15, 15, 15. It seemed to work as a better option to make sure every child is getting daily 45 minutes in somewhere in the day.
Great, thank you. That's all I have. So just my point on there was just specifying that it should be 3, morning, lunch, and afternoon.
On that note, though, I want to specify too that it doesn't start until the start of school. So when that morning, when buses drop off, that does not count as a recess.
Correct. It does not count into our 45 minutes. However, many students and families take advantage of that morning time and opportunity that the playgrounds are opened at some of our schools, most of our schools. And so it is not part of our 45 minutes, but there is that time too.
Okay, thank you. All right, additional questions? We'll start here with Trustee Varner. Do you have any?
Yes, thank you for your work on this. If you could explain to the public why you made the policy shorter, more concise. I know the reason that is done, but maybe just for the public, so when they look at this and that you've taken a lot of things out and put into the regulation, maybe your thoughts or reasoning behind that.
Yes. So working with Ms. Roberts and the input of the community that we received, we thought some things needed to be addressed more clearly, such as not withholding recess, not using it as a universal consequence or prevention. And it was getting very long in a policy, and we looked at our other practices we have in the district, and our policies are pretty concise and short, and then our regulation can really expand on some of those topics. We thought that was a better fit for this, as there was some new things we wanted to add, particularly around behavior, MTSS, not using it as a whole school consequence. And once we added that all into the policy, it was just too much verbiage and too long. So we thought this would help dividing it out to be more clear in our regulation.
Yeah, that is the trend, and thank you for doing that. Also, just so it's really clear to the public, we're not taking away any recess from any child.
Correct. We are not taking away any recess. We understand the importance of recess in elementary school, pre-K 5. It still is at 45 minutes a day. But as I discussed, there are situations when students may need more support so that all students are safe during that recess time. We might need more adults. We strongly believe students need access to recess throughout their day and scheduled appropriately, so it breaks up the curriculum. We know there is a lot of research that shows how important it is. So we are not removing recess for any student. We are keeping it at 45 minutes a day, just giving those principals and teachers working with their principals and the parents for those very specific situations where it may need to look different for some students, because not all students always have the exact same school day, right? They might have a different need in their day.
And also, one of the reasons for a shorter policy statement is that it's easier to change a regulation if something changes. That way, you don't have to go back and change the policy all the time.
That is
So
correct.
then I just have a couple other quick things. Rebecca, you had a lot of good questions. Thank you. Yeah. You touched upon a lot of stuff. Anyway, thank you. I would suggest that in the recess regulation, under where you have the first set of bullet points, the second bullet point down is reinforces positive behavior expectations aligned with MTSS and PBIS. I would suggest that you spell that
Spell that out.
multi-tier system of support, and you have PBS kind of spelled out later on in the policy, but I'd do that right at the first.
Great, I can do that. And just for the record, PBIS is Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports.
Right. I'm also in favor of not making a policy so restrictive that it takes away some of the behaviors, not behaviors, but actions that teachers can take to control behaviors in the classroom. So I'm glad there's some flexibility in that. I also witnessed this firsthand about how some child was being, his recess was not taken away, but he was being accompanied by an adult. And they were walking the track. He was outside getting exercise. But during that period of time, there was discussions ongoing about his behavior and other ways to improve. And so I thought that was a good way to handle things too. He was outside getting exercise, fresh air, but yet the teacher was able to communicate her expectations. So I think that's really about all I have. Thank you.
Trustee Peterson?
I'm still kind of a swirling pool of thought right now, but touching on what Trustee Varner said, for example, a staff member walking somebody who needs to still move, but maybe needs to be excluded from play, who is expected to be the staff member? Like, do we have specific people like dog-eared for those responsibilities?
We do at times. We have our noon duties, we have our interventionist, we have instructional coaches, we have our social workers, thankfully, that will be at our elementary sites. It might be the vice principal, it might be the principal, it might be a partner teacher, it might be an older peer. It might be, hey, today you're going to go to fourth grade recess because we need you to buddy up with this guy and you get along great with this kid. Schools are very creative in how they make this work without their day. It might be the specials teacher, the PE teacher, and it can be individualized, but we do have those things in place. Recess is also pretty important for that classroom teacher, right? Even though sometimes they are on duty with their students, sometimes that's part of their quick reset break, getting ready for the next section. So there aren't teachers who really, they don't love smoke days and snow days when you're inside all day is tough for our teaching staff as well and our paras. We have a lot of support to support that safe, restructure or reteaching if needed.
Okay. Is there ever a situation where you envision a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention looking like a child sitting on a chair in the office, just being excluded and being still?
Yes, not as a long-term tier 2 intervention, as an immediate response to a behavior, yes, but that would not be part of a tier 2 plan. We would never say, okay, the intervention we're going to do for the next 6 weeks is you're going to sit in this chair every day at recess. Absolutely not. On a situational, like the example I gave earlier, you had a really rough morning, you were physically aggressive, you have not earned this first recess this morning, and instead you're going to be in here with me in the office for today, and we're going to call mom and we're going to let her know what happened this morning, perhaps. But that would not be part of an intervention plan as a long-term intervention that we would provide to a student as part. If you're in tier 2 or tier 3, that's very formalized. We'd create the plan as a team. The parent is part of that plan. They are communicated and a part of that team. And that may not be the intervention we select. We might know, oh no, we're not ever taking away recess for this tier 2 kiddo, but we're gonna do a totally different intervention. So no, I don't see it as a long-term. I would see that as like a one-off.
Are the tier 2 and tier 3 responses on a kid who is already designated as a 2 or 3 student? It's not like a reactive, like your behavior, I'm putting you in a 2 now, you need to go have these. Is it a kid who's already previously identified?
Yes, and part of that MTSS process, already been notified. We have a state letter that goes out, and we would create then a plan as a community of what will work for this student. I'll give you an example at Fritch. We have some of our tier 2 students last year were working with Miss Sin, the school social worker, during their afternoon recess. She was doing Growth Garden, which has a very specific curriculum, Cope to Thrive, about making safe choices, respectful choices. They were gardening, they were doing that. And the parents were part of that plan of, during this time, I want my child to be participating, because we were seeing really great strides forward in appropriate behavior, making friendships, making safe choices. Their recess was a little more structured, but it was in collaboration with the family.
So then at the bottom of, sorry, put these back on. The bottom of the regulation where it specifies that if you are a tier 1, you will not have this recess withheld. So they will be guaranteed that 45-minute, hopefully separated into 3 sections as we've requested. So if you're a tier 1, you are at 0 risk of having that recess revoked for a punitive or a reparative, restorative.
For punitive, no. Yes, it's a tier 1 recess. You forgot your homework today. That's punitive in our minds. A destructive or unsafe behavior, you might lose your recess for that day. But that is not an intervention. That is a response to what is going on in that moment.
What percentage, if you know, would you estimate of our elementary kids are in that tier 1?
100% of students are tier 1.
Or not out of tier 1?
Oh, not out of tier 1. Well, we have the idea with the tiered system is that students can flow in between tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, back to tier 2. But we do have to collect some data and, see what's going on there. District-wide, we probably have about 10, 12% of students who are tier 3 and have specific behavior goals. And that's really, this would be focused on students with behavior, not academic. We have more students who have tiered supports for academics, but around this policy, it would be more for our students who are really working on very specific behavior, building social skills, safe play. So it is not hundreds of children by any means. It's usually students who are on a very specific IEP plan, and maybe a behavior goal is part of that IEP plan. And that's more likely where we would see this, where it's not just a once, really rough day. That would be more of our students who are struggling with making safe choices regularly, and likely are already on an IEP.
Okay. I'm trying to embrace this. Admittedly, I'm very defensive of this and feel protective, and I've had 4 kids through, and they've been a part of Trustee Roberts, where they've been whole class discipline for the behavior or actions of a couple, and so I used to be daily in the office at one of the elementary schools for several years, and would see that kid sitting on a chair being excluded, and so I'm trying to I'm devil's advocating a little in my brain, on the pros and the cons, and trying to find balance for how I can embrace this. And so I appreciate you letting me ask some good digging questions. I'm sure I will have more, but I'm looking forward to hearing some of the questions of the rest of the board. But I just want to echo my support of what Trustee Roberts had said about the importance of that 3 being specified. Even as adults in an 8-hour workday, we have 3 very distinct. We get 2 15s and an hour for lunch. Kids need that wiggle, like we've discussed so much in this policy, how essential that is. And so I think anything that risks the structure of that being not kept as metered outbreaks, I think it's important to keep that broken up. I don't know if I'm making sense. Sorry,
You are.
It's still swirling. Thank you.
Trustee Clapham? Trustee Ramirez?
So going back to the second page on the regulation, where it says when behavioral concerns arise that may require the student is in need of a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention. And then it says 15 or more minutes of recess may be used to provide a research-based intervention/strategy. Based on what I just heard on the question that Trustee Peterson asked, we're not using this for intervention. Can we omit the word intervention and just leave strategy, since they're going to be using a research-based strategy to work with that student?
Okay.
Thank you. And then another question, if I heard you correctly, you mentioned that on the policy that aligns with policy 245, and it would be, if I heard you correctly, it was referencing the 45-minute recess. Did I hear you correctly? That it aligns with
So it
policy?
aligns with our district wellness policy, which we have to have a wellness policy. We don't have to have a recess policy or regulation, but we do have to have a wellness policy.
Wellness policy. So that's 245, correct?
245, which in our wellness policy, our adopted board wellness policy says 30 minutes of movement, and that is the policy. So this is the recess policy that we're putting in place is still at the 45 in surplus of our adopted wellness policy.
So I may have pulled an old one because I did not see that unless I did not read it properly. But I did not see that 30-minute listed
wellness
on
policy?
the policy 245.
Okay. I'll
You
take a
can
look.
just double check on that, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Other than that, everything is, thank you for all this work and for answering all our questions.
Trustee Tasuki?
I really don't have any questions. I do like the stipulation that they get a break 3 times. I would say, coming from a high school, that you could not count the 4-minute passing period at a high school rushing through the hallways at Carson High School as being any break whatsoever. At a high school, your students you get a half-hour lunch, and that's lunch and your break time. So they don't get any more rest or relaxation. And I'm just assuming, because we have the shortness of the policy language and then the more extensive regulation language, that kind of just aligns to our Nevada revised statutes are quite short. And then our Nevada Administrative Code, that's where we actually delineate all of the details to enforce the NRS. So I can see how that's aligned to keep your policy short with the details in the regulations. So.
All right, great. Thank you. So few questions and comments on my end. So one, I just want to reiterate, if it hasn't, I understand that the policy is going to be shorter than the regulation, but please ensure that the policy aligns with the regulation. So the language that's in the regulation is the same language that is in the policy. And I know we addressed it for the last paragraph where it says, the elementary students will be given the opportunity for the daily recess, and we chose to suggest that it be all elementary students will receive 45 minutes of daily recess. So you would change, the last paragraph in the policy to align with what is addressed in the last paragraph on the first page of the regulation. So I do think it's important that the policy and the regulation align, for confusion and so that there isn't different language. And then I don't know if you addressed this, but who decides when a recess is used for tier 2 or tier 3? I'm not even going to call it intervention because we're calling it a strategy, correct? All right. Is that the teacher, the administrator, the counselor, the MTSS team? Who is that?
I think it's a combination of things. So in a situation where, I'll keep going back to the same really poor example, where a student is maybe physically aggressive in the morning, the teacher is going to most likely reach out to their site administrator and say, this child is being very destructive in my class. I need additional support. In that scenario, the admin is most likely going might have to remove recess that day because they're going to be dealing with maybe a behavior consequence for that. If it is becoming an ongoing pattern, and this is happening 4 times a week in this first grade classroom, let's say, then that would become the site MTSS team who is going to say, we need more supports for this student every day. They're having a really rough day. We're having to evacuate the room. We would then know that we need to put a tier 2 plan into place for behavior specific. That would include the family, the classroom teacher, the site administrator, maybe an interventionist that they have at their site, the school social worker, a whole team. And we would look at what's triggering this behavior. Is the student eating breakfast? Are they coming to school late every day and they're upset when they get out of the vehicle? We would look at the whole scenario, and then we would develop a plan that the family is a part of developing that plan. And we would put strategies and interventions in place to hopefully decrease that unwanted behavior, with the goal of maybe it's not removing recess at all, but that could be an option when developing that plan. But that's a much more structured time, and it's not just you're tier 2 today, you're tier 3 tomorrow. No, you are a tier 1 student. All students are tier 1. If your child is becoming a tier 2 for behavior, the community is a part of that plan, your family's a part of that plan, and the whole school team is a piece of building that plan and implementing the plan. Then we do collect data. Our plan is working. We give the student a snack every day at 9:05, and the student has not had a behavior event in 8 days. And so now we've, our plan, let's keep doing it. It's being successful, and you're earning more recess, safe, you're playing appropriately with your peers, and our intervention was safe and successful.
Okay. And then, so at that time, when a strategy is being implemented, the parents are notified
Yes.
right away?
Yes.
Okay.
As soon as safely possible.
Okay.
There are the workings of a school going on, and if it's happening during a lunch recess, and there's behavior, at times the administrator might have to intervene and then make sure everyone is where they need to be, and call that family or notify that family as soon as physically possible. But it is usually quite immediate in some of these more extreme scenarios.
And just something going through my head right now. There isn't a way that we can require those parents to come and be part of that strategy, is there?
I think it can be part of the intervention plan. We can be, again, pretty creative when we say, we want to try this strategy. Will this work for your student? Are you going to have a quick snack with them before, So I think parents, yes, are of course a part of our plans in our community, and we want to welcome them into what will work for your child so they can be the most successful possible.
Great. I think that's great. Also, I think on page 2, I would like to see where it says and I don't know where you would be in the first paragraph, but when a behavioral concerns arise that may require a student, in need of tier 2 or tier 3 intervention, somewhere that who is implementing this strategy is a trained staff. I'm not quite sure what training we give to, the recess supervisors, what kind of training that they receive and how often, but I think it would be important that it is a trained staff. It's not a substitute teacher, just because that's on my mind for the next agenda item, but that it is somebody that is trained. So if we could add something in that regulation that it is going to be by trained staff, I would appreciate that. Okay. No, I really, before we close this agenda item, yes, go ahead, Trustee Roberts, any follow-ups?
Yeah, I did have a few follow-ups. And I appreciate the trained staff that you just brought up, as well as anyone who's out there, not necessarily, even for the tier 1s, just, this is coming out, this is new, so making sure that those volunteers that come in or those lunch duty aides are aware as well, because I know a lot of the time there were reports of them taking recess away a lot of the time from kids, making them sit on the wall the whole recess because they ran across the blacktop, and the blacktop is a no-run zone, etc. So training all staff would be really good. And then when you say losing recess, you're not talking about that long term. That's situational. It might be lost that day because that behavior happened right before recess. but then there's a plan in place to make their recess safe. And the goal is to get them out of that intervention or that strategy quickly.
Yes.
Not this long-term, for the year you've lost,
Correct.
for 6 weeks you've lost or whatever. The goal is to get them out quickly. And then one thing I forgot to mention, I think I sent it in my email to you, but you brought up the snow days or smoke days, or there was that fire that started and the kids had to stay in for safety reasons at Fremont. So on those types of days, can we add something in here that they are still getting that allotted time, that if they have to stay in for that recess, they're doing those brain breaks or that free time? Because I know that some of those times they have lost that recess and they continue on with the curriculum. So if we could add something about those types of scenarios, that would be great. And then also I forgot to thank the public for all the comments that they sent in back in March and for coming in person. It's just, I really appreciate when the public voices their opinions and takes the time to do that and helps us see things from all perspectives. So thank you very much.
Right. Yeah, so thank you, Trustee Roberts, for bringing this to our attention. And thank you for working on this as well. I know it's not something that we necessarily have to have, but I appreciate that the board feels as passionate in how important it is for our students. So I appreciate everybody's time on this because it just shows that we have a very diverse board thinking in all different directions. So I can really appreciate everybody's time on this. All right. Having no more questions, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 10, informational update on EduStaff substitute staffing services in the Carson City School District for discussion only. This is brought to us by Mr. Sadler and is on our agenda as a request of Trustee Varner.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Give me just a second. I'll open this up here. All right, so we have been in partnership with EduStaff just over 1 calendar year now. And I'm going to go through all of the information that we have here to share with you tonight. Just kind of a strategic shift in perspective as I've been going through this, that, you know, when we looked at partnering with EduStaff and we considered a few different partners before we did partner with EduStaff, we were having significant shortfalls with staffing our substitutes and covering classrooms, which was also contributing to teacher burnout and having to cover on their prep periods. That was a very big part of the conversation and why we looked at this partnership. And so what I'll be sharing with you here tonight, really the sub shortage is not the primary issue. The partnership that we have forged with EduStaff has largely solved access to substitutes, and I'll share that information here in just a minute. But really our biggest challenge with the data that we've looked at this year is managing high volume absences. So we'll get into that as well. But I know the $1 million question here, literally $1 million question, is what is this costing us? And so when we started having conversations about this partnership, we really wanted it to be cost neutral. And it was also very difficult to predict what that would look like exactly, because it's not comparing apples to apples when we look at different data sets. So even in this data here, there's a couple things that I'll point out, but the highlight here for this year, you can see that our total expenditures for covering substitutes, and this also includes any in-house sub coverage from a teacher on a prep period, was 1.634 and 130, which is down from last school year considerably. Also lower than 2 school years ago, and just a little bit higher than it was 3 years ago. So just let that sink in for a second. The yellow part of the box is the cost of the expenditure that is attributed specifically to prep coverage or in-house coverage. So when a teacher covers another class on their prep because we didn't have a sub or any other multitude of reasons why they needed to cover a class. So that yellow part of the box you can see in comparison to last year, which we spent $133,000 on in-house sub coverage, went down to $49,235 as part of that overall expenditure. Yeah, go ahead.
So related to that in-house coverage, so that was something, it came up as a question, I don't know, probably before COVID, just how much were we using our own people internally to cover for absences, so buying out preps or spreading out elementary classrooms. So we've been tracking this for some time. That in my earlier years, going around and having listening sessions around at the schools, especially for those schools that were really struggling with absences and not being able to find coverage, we had, teachers don't have to go on their prep to cover a classroom. It's voluntary. And one of the primary complaints I had was how often they were being asked to do that. And some actually saying that I just refuse. I'm giving up my prep every single day because I'm going into cover for other people when there's absences because we can't find a sub. So to me, as much as I'm happy about the blue, I'm actually much happier about the yellow because that has taken a lot of pressure off our staff in the schools, having to give up their prep periods or having kids spread out in elementary classrooms and putting additional workload on our folks. I just wanted to point that out. That's been an issue that's come up for me for a number of years, and so I was really excited to see this number.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Feely.
Can I jump in, though, on that? So, because it's, what I've heard, though, too, is that TOSAs have been asked and have been put into classrooms does this include them?
If a TOSA covered, they have a prep period and would also be compensated for that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And so they would be in the yellow?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Before we move on, just since we're on the money issue, what does a sub make or get paid per day? And what do we pay an EDGE staff for every sub that they put in the classroom?
A daily substitute in Carson City School District working for EDGE staff gets paid $150 a day. And there's a 26% markup for our EDGE staff. In this number, one of the things that you don't see that is built into that is also, so like if you look at fiscal year 23, that number represents the pay that we gave to our substitute teachers. It includes long-term subs. It includes the payroll taxes, I would call them, all the liabilities we have as a district as far as like workers' comp and additional things that we need to pay as employers. And then when we get into fiscal year 24 and 25, what you see, what I should say is you don't see it in that blue, but it's represented in the number is we start also adding a PERS cost for long-term substitutes, which was required starting, I want to say it was January 24 when it actually implemented. And so that wasn't the driver for the conversation with EDGE staff. It was really like, we need help. And when I get to the data of what that represents in other ways, you'll see some of the other value here. But it becomes extra value for the district in that when we have long-term subs now that are employed by EDGE staff, we're not also required to pay that PERS for those individuals.
Do you know offhand how much we pay EDGE staff per year or for this last year?
How much we pay to EDGE staff?
Well, I know we pay them 26% on top of the $150 a day, but over the year period of time, do you know what that amounted to?
That's this number here. 1.584895 covers all of our substitute
Yeah, I'm
costs.
talking about just what we pay EDGE staff. Am I? for ed staff.
If I'm thinking of this correctly, if I would take 26% of this number,
That's what
would that?
Yeah, because it's a 26% mark up.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll let the money guys speak here.
I see he's got his,
Good evening. Just did some quick calculations.
here.
This might not be right down to the penny, but of that 1.5 million, I believe about 440,000 of that is the fees that go to EDGE staff. Their gross cost. Keep in mind that they also take care of our unemployment, workers' comp, social security, other taxes out of that amount paid to them. So that's their gross amount, not net to them.
Hold on, if you don't mind, Trustee
Go
Varner,
ahead.
we're gonna go ahead and let you
Sure.
finish your presentation because
Yep.
he and I are both just going back and forth and you'll never finish. So go ahead and finish that. Go ahead.
I thought that might happen, but I also wanted to get this out front because that's a big part of this conversation.
Thank you.
But there is a lot to celebrate in this as well. So this is just a different look at that prep coverage as far as the amount of occurrences that we had when we needed to cover prep periods. So again, this year being fiscal year 26, representing that dollar amount of $49,235. You can see that it was down to 1,100 instances or occurrences where we had to do that in-house coverage. Last year, over 3,000. The year before that, 3,600. And the year before that, 3,200. So huge celebration here in really allowing our teachers to focus on their planning and doing their jobs as instructors in the schools, and also with our administrators to be able to focus on running their buildings in ways other than just trying to figure out how to cover preps. So really the return on investment here is, in addition to covering all those in-house subs, our fill rates have gone up significantly. Over the previous 3 years, we were between 67 and 82%, as like our highest months being 82% fill rates, meaning like we still had 18% of our positions that were vacant and not filled with a substitute teacher. This year, we averaged 94.1%, which is amazing. A 15% rate growth for 1 year. So approximately, I mean, if you just easy math on that, 94 out of every 100 of our teacher absences has been covered this year. And I really credit Heather Smith and EDU staff and their entire team in the work that they've done. And this graph represents really the talent pipeline and the total pool that we have. So when we started with EDU staff on the left side of this graph, you see there at the top, we had 94 substitute teachers on our books as substitute teachers in Carson City School District. Of those 94, 68 of them actually worked during the school year. And you can see that as we moved through this, so that was very late last spring when we started. As we moved through this school year in April, one calendar year after we started, we had 226 substitute teachers on the books. And of that 226, we had 130 that were working on a regular basis. So that talent pool has gotten much deeper, which has made things a lot more accessible for our teachers, which helps keep the school up and running and students learning. Absence trends, the first slide I showed you, that like really getting subs is not the issue anymore. It's kind of switched to we're having a lot of absences. Some of that there's not much we can do about it. This represents historical data that we pulled out of our accounting system just to say, well, how many absences have we had to fill year by year so that we could compare apples to apples. And there's not a significant difference here. It's been pretty well the same with a little bit of a bump last year. This number is actually data that we pulled out of Red Rover and working with EDU staff. And it shows the data is a little bit more than just daily subs. So this data may not represent like when we've had super subs and long-term subs in there. This is just teacher absences. Whereas this data also includes super subs and long-term subs. So again, not apples to apples on those two slides, but for last school year, again, when we started with EDU staff there, beginning of last school year, August, September, look at those fill rates down to 60%, 68%, 77%. We did really well in May, 90.4%. That was our first month with EduStaff last year. And then you can see through this year that we did not have one month that we were under 90% as a district average. But you see that there's a lot more data there for this year, a lot more need. And so I started taking a look at what are the primary drivers of that. And our employees have days afforded to them. We have, by statute and agreement, 15 sick days for certified staff, personal leave days, there's family sick leave. Of course, we have school business that covers a lot of different things. So there's no judgment in this whatsoever. This is just data and what we're looking at and what we need to cover. It's a lot of days. But overall, 60% of our daily sub-demand is based on sick leave requests. Just a little bit of a breakdown by site. Our highest fill rates, Fritch Elementary School, 98.8%, Seeliger, 98.4%, Mark Twain, 96.3%. And kudos to those administrators. It's not a competition, but they just really go above and beyond and make those substitute teachers feel comfortable, make sure that they touch base with them when they're in their schools. I've heard that there's some gift cards, given away on Fridays if you're subbing at certain sites, like just doing nice little things. Our highest pressure sites, no surprise there being our largest campuses. Carson Middle School is not on this slide here. They were very close, a little bit above Eagle Valley, but Carson High School, 88.4%. Eagle Valley, 86.7%, and Silver Campus, 84%, which, again, going back to our historical data, is still above where we were last year and in previous years. So that's not a negative number, but it is something that we want to take a closer look at. Fill rates by weekday, no surprise here. Fridays and Mondays are our hardest days for us to fill. But very interesting when we look at the lead time and how this really helps us out or helps EduStaff get the positions filled. If you have 3 days notice of putting that in, so most of our school business requests, things like that, we know ahead of time, teacher puts the request in. If there's 3 days or more of notice, 97.3% fill rate. Whereas if it's the same day, like you wake up and you're not feeling great and you put that sub request in last minute, that drops down to 74% as far as the fill rate goes. And some of those are unavoidable. So again, there's no judgment in this, it's data, but certainly something we want to try to respond to. Let's see, EduStaff shared some feedback. They surveyed our substitutes this year and overall very satisfied. We did have a few of our substitutes who were kind of grumpy about switching over to EduStaff and having to fill out an application and felt like they shouldn't have to do that, but they're a different employer and we definitely supported them through that process. A lot of them stayed with us and have been doing great. And a couple decided that they didn't want to continue to sub initially and came back, and some just didn't come back at all. But as you can see, the numbers, again, going from 90 to over 200, we're thriving with the substitutes that we have. EduStaff does some really good training for the substitute teachers that was not previously taking place as well. That can also make people a little grumpy if they have to do training, and they'll have to do it again next year. That is a company policy for EduStaff. But there's a lot of support and really trying to make sure that the individuals who are substituting can continue with the lesson plans that are provided and keep those educational services moving forward, even though a teacher might be out for the day. So 4.12 out of 5 is overall satisfactory. You can see specific strengths, welcoming school cultures and support from local faculty, challenges, not a surprise here, student behavior management, especially for a substitute, that can be a challenge. And classroom technology hurdles, like that's something that we can do something about next year, and making sure that if a teacher's leaving lesson plans that involve technology, that there's very specific guidance for the substitute to be able to use that technology in the classroom, making sure we have access. Just a couple next steps and recommendations for next year. We have discussed and already made the decision that we won't be bringing super subs back to every campus. That'll be a little bit of a cost saving. Super subs was something we put in place when we were really struggling, and we said, hey, we know we're gonna need to have coverage today, so let's just put somebody who reports to the site every day, and they can fill the gaps when we have absences. We've relied on those people. They've been magnificent over the years, but we're at a position where we don't really have the same need anymore. Our fill rates are way up. We have more people who are working as substitutes. There may be some needs, individual sites, depending on the programming, and kind of take that on a case-by-case basis, but we have communicated with EduStaff and those super subs that we will not be offering those positions for next year. And really, that's a celebration to the system and the work that's going on. Targeted secondary marketing, again, our highest need schools as far as the rates for fill sub positions go, being Eagle Valley and Carson High School. And we've asked EduStaff to just target those specific sites with some marketing and see what we can do to get people to want to pick those positions up. Entry efficiency, incentivizing earlier absence reporting is just an idea, and that doesn't have to be monetary incentive, but just different ways. Like if you know you're going to be out and you get that in there, some way to recognize the extra efforts there for that communication. And same with incentivizing teacher attendance. So just things to consider as next steps for next year. So there's a lot of data there, a lot of information, and I will entertain any questions that you have at this time.
Yes, thank you. Since this was brought to us by Trustee Varner, we'll go ahead and start with him.
I asked my main questions, but I'm looking at your last page here, incentivize teacher attendance, financial/structural incentives. What do you mean by financial? I know what you mean, but I mean, how would that look?
Yeah, well, I think it's just something to look at. There's some districts that say, hey, if you don't use X amount of days, then you can, get an incentive at the end of the year. Like, we'll pay you for some of your sick days because you didn't use them. And that's an incentive, and that if it's done the right way, costs less than putting subs in the classroom to cover those days. So that's an example, and that's not a specific recommendation saying do that one, but ideas
Just
to take a look
ideas.
at. Mhm.
Okay. And then if we look at the contracts, EduStaff is $1.3 million contract. Is that right?
Yeah, so in the budget, you had, that we just passed last meeting. For FY 25-26, it said that we paid EduStaff $1.3 million, and now in the budget that we just passed for FY 26-27, their contract is for $1.1 million.
That was based off our best data at the time, to Spencer Winter for the record, by the way, of what we budget. Obviously, if we go through the year and we know we're going to go more than that, that could be higher. We are anticipating some lower costs where we don't have those super subs as well. It might not equate exactly to that, but that's the kind of thing that we monitor. Come the time that we roll around with the December budget, we may need to make an adjustment to that and bolster that from other budgeted funds.
So my question is when it was presented to us last year, am I missing something when it was presented and it was going to be cost neutral? And now it's 1.1 million? What am I missing?
So if we weren't spending that 1.1 million towards EduStaff, we'd be putting that to subs.
Okay, so what were we putting towards to subs prior to EduStaff?
So we had funding budgeted in our salaries and benefits categories because they went to our substitutes who are our employees. We've now shifted that budget from our salaries and benefits to contracted services, because that same amount that we were paying in subs, which looking at Mr. Sadler's data here, we're slightly less this year than we were last year. So had we been paying this amount, and if we calculate that out, it might actually be a little bit more once we put all of our benefits costs in there than what we did pay this year to EduStaff.
And I mean, I'm really trying to understand this, so please, don't take this defensively or anything, but okay, so if I'm reading this correctly, FY 25, we did not have EduStaff.
They
Correct.
came in right at the very end of the year.
Okay, so let's go ahead and go with FY 24. We did not have EduStaff.
Correct.
And we put 1.6 million into substitutes,
Correct. Substitutes and our own teachers miss preps.
Okay. And so then, now we're looking at FY '27, or, FY '26, '27, putting 1.1 million totally incompletely, so we're looking at a $500,000 savings. Is that correct?
I couldn't say that, no, that I think we're going to stick to that 1.1 million cap.
Right.
As we adjust our budget, I suspect that would be higher. I don't know that we could really look at, hey, we have cost savings, but I think we can look at, hey, we've transitioned our system to where we have higher fill rates, we have happier employees because they're not missing their preps all the time, and that really didn't cost us anymore, because if you compare FY '24 to this year, essentially the same cost, even though in FY '24 it went out our door at salaries and benefits. In FY '26 it went out our door as contractor costs.
With
And then
EduStaff.
again, 72% of that went directly into the subs pockets, and the rest of it covered their benefits and the cost for EduStaff services.
Okay, and so the 26% that were
Excuse me, 28%, I apologize.
to EduStaff?
Yeah, so for example, we pay a substitute $150. EduStaff bills us $189.
Okay, so this, now I'm getting it. So within that 1.1 million to EduStaff, are we still paying out the door for substitutes?
No, that one, the money that goes to substitutes is included in that 1.1 million.
All right.
So even, we have budgeted that amount, but our budgeted salary and benefits costs, where our sub costs used to live,
Yeah.
have been reduced. So that's where it really becomes cost neutral. Essentially, we've shifted the category where that's budgeted. So you see that 1.1 million that you wouldn't have seen in FY '24. But in FY '24, your salaries and benefits costs overall, specifically in the general fund, would have been 1.1 million higher. Does that,
No.
I hope I'm making sense.
Oh, because all I just want to know is, in the proposed $1.1 million, is that all of the substitute costs inclusive in that 1.1 million?
Yes.
That's all. Thank you.
And Dan Sadler, for the record, the other thing that we don't know yet for next year is, what are our vacancies going to look like? Like, we're still in active hiring season, right? So the data for this year and last year up here represent, well, all of these years actually represent the cost of long-term subs being intermingled into that cost. If we end up with no teacher vacancies, which would be amazing, then there will be a lower cost because we won't have long-term subs mixed into those costs.
Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Varner, if you had more. Sorry.
No, I appreciate the information. What I was looking at is, I know that the possibility exists that next year we may find ourselves in another situation like we did this year, where we had to make reductions. And so as we go through this next year, I'm going to be looking for any place that may be able to be reduced. And that's why I kind of want to get a handle on how much we're paying, how much it's costing us, and if there's any room for possible reductions in the future. And so, thank you for the information.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think when we're putting this data together, like I said, it represents things that you don't see there. And one of those things, like, let's just say, yeah, times get harder, budget, and we got to look at things and we say, okay, well, we're not doing EduStaff, we're going to do just our own subs. There will be, if you have anybody who's in a long-term position, then that PERS cost gets included. So this data, I think, really shows us that we're in a really good spot with EduStaff, and there might be even additional cost savings moving forward. Certainly, as you look at the budget, there's going to be things you need to look closely at. But it's kind of like forecasting, like, okay, what do we think we're going to have for vacancies next year? And the more people we have in long-term sub-positions, I think the more risk there is for the district because of that, 36.5% PERS cost added to those long-term subs.
Yeah. For example, Spencer went over the record again, that $150 that we pay to the sub, and then with the overhead is $189 for EduStaff. If in the case where that were a PERSable position, that $150 that we pay to the sub with our benefits cost included would be $208. So to revert away from EduStaff likely would not result in cost savings.
Trustee Peterson?
I just have one, and I don't think it's a hard question, hopefully. On the page where there's a yellow straight line and then the blue straight line where you're showing substitute talent pipeline expansion. Yes. Okay, so the blue line is people who have actually applied with EduStaff and who are currently in the pool available to be hired, but only the yellow line are the people that actually say, yes, I'll accept. Is there any cost? So like as of April, there's almost 100 additional people in that pool that aren't even accepting assignments.
Correct.
Does that 100 people have a cost to us?
No.
Of any sort?
No.
Okay. That's it. Thanks.
That was an easy one.
Trustee
I won't
Clapham?
complicate it.
Trustee Clapham? No. Trustee Roberts? Trustee Ramirez? Trustee Satuki, all right.
I do. Only because a couple of things you mentioned about giving, incentivizing teachers' attendance, right? Like if I'm looking at the Nevada report card, I don't have the data from 25-26 school year, but 24-25, Carson's average daily attendance of their teachers was almost 1.3% higher than the state average. I'm not saying maybe the state average is wonky because for some reason all of a sudden they got better, but so our average daily attendance of our teachers in Carson is not as good as what the state average is, and that costs us more money, right? When our teachers aren't coming, like if our teachers all came, we wouldn't be spending $1.1 billion. So I kind of understand that. So I kind of like to. I don't have the data from 25-26, but I'd like to see like our average daily attendance for our staff compared to maybe the state or even our local or neighboring districts would be kind of interesting to pull, just because I couldn't find it on a Nevada report card. It's not current. So, and then also on incentivizing, I don't know, I probably should look at the teacher contract, but do we have a buyout incentive program? So like, I know like when I left Clark County, if I had 170 sick days, then I could buy out an extra year for PERS and retire a year earlier. Then do we have that in Carson?
We do.
As part of that?
Yeah, for employees who've been with the district for 10 years or more is the way the language is currently worded. And there's different percentages as far as how much you get based on your daily rate of pay. It's a reduced amount. It's not your full daily rate of pay for sick leave, up to 200 days.
Okay, so it's directly correlated to their sick leave that they've accumulated.
Correct.
So there is a little bit of incentive if they stay around.
Yeah, on the back end. Mm-hmm.
And then the only other thing I would be curious about, because I saw that there's a substitute satisfaction rating, which is awesome, right? Because I don't know if there's a harder job on the planet than being a substitute teacher. But I'd like to even see, like, do we ever survey our staff to ask them the quality of the subs we're getting from EduStaff or just in general, right? Like I'd like to I used to do that as a building principal every year to determine which subs I'd allow back in my building the next year. So do we do a district survey of our staff?
We haven't. No, but that's a good idea. I think that would be good feedback to get. And I'm thinking back as we've talked with EduStaff, I don't think they sent their survey to our employees. It was just to the EduStaff employees, but we could certainly do that.
Good feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah. And interesting with the data, I do have more data available and broken down in different ways. I just put it through the filter of like chronic absenteeism for students. And I have to be cautious in even mentioning this because I said, no judgment, this is data. So I'll say the same precursor here that it's no judgment, but we had over 100 teachers that would be considered chronic absentees if they were students based on their attendance rates. So I'm going to say again, no judgment. It's a data point, but something we need to address.
That's an interesting point to point out. Thank you for that. Yes, because at the end of the day as well, it's important to point out that when we are continually looking at deficit spending, and we get, the bargaining units to come up. I mean, there would be something to be said, that if we didn't have this cost, it would be saving us money as well.
Can
I
can
do
add
have
one more
another
thing?
question. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to follow up with what Mr. Fueling said, because I know that yellow number of 50,000 is very impressive, because as a building principal, I know the first half hour of every day, at least, my poor office manager spent her first half hour every morning trying to cover classes, right? Trying to get people to sell their preps, and because we didn't have enough subs in such a large district, that it was exhausting for her. There were days when we had like 23 teachers out. Of course, I had 120 teachers, but to find 23 teachers to cover, right, was crazy. And it burnt them out and made them exhausted. And, you know, and half the time my admin were in classrooms, and I had to go cover classrooms a couple times. And not that I shouldn't do that as a building principal, it's a good thing to do, but those unexpected or unanticipated benefits that, like, I just think my office manager would have loved this, because she wouldn't have wasted so much time of her own trying to cover classes.
Great, thank you. So if I, just a points of clarification, we are no longer going to be doing super subs, correct?
Not for every site. It'll be case by case. We've had some conversations about, like, for instance, sites that have ASP classrooms, and we ran into a couple situations this year where we didn't have anybody to cover, and I think it's really important in those specific situations that the adult who's coming to cover the classroom knows a little bit about the kids and the way things work there, and that the kids know the adults too. So there might be benefit to considering some limited super subs for sites. As of right now, the conversation has been, no, we're not doing super subs at all. I just think that's still on the table based on whatever the need ends up looking like.
Okay.
That could be.
And then long-term substitutes, I might have missed this, are they still EduStaff?
They are.
Okay, so long-term subs are, okay, thank you. And so then one, just a follow-up of the request then is if it is possible, if we could get feedback from teachers and site administrators on what they think of EduStaff, and, you know, improvements, if there are any improvements to have, that would be something. And then I would like to be able to see this, if we can get an update, maybe through half the year, you know, maybe December-ish, if we could do an update on that as well, that would be great. And then,
Excuse me one second. Can you clarify what you'd like to update on specifically, just so
The
it's
trends.
on the record? Because I won't be here next year, so
yeah, just.
we'll get that on the record.
Yeah, where are you going? How dare you?
Yeah.
No, just the trends, not so much
Okay.
EduStaff.
So similar data, but
Yes.
just an update. Okay.
Yeah, just kind of the trends as well as we're embarking into, you know, another agenda, another budget season. You know, it would be nice to kind of see what the trends are.
Okay.
On that, if we could do like side-by-side comparisons like you did here, that would be great. If we could do that maybe in December, that'd be great. You know, one, and I hate to bring this up in a public meeting, but I am. So my son became a substitute in the winter. And just as a point, it took him forever to get, not because he wasn't filing his paperwork, but the response time, and then get trained. And his training got postponed, and then it got postponed again. And here I am going, come on, get on that
Yeah,
app.
get to work, kids. right?
Start, yes, get to work, get on that app. And he's like, Mom, I'm not cleared. I don't know what's going on. And so I don't know if that's something you can address with EduStaff, that if the one individual that they have training, if they don't have a backup on that end as well. And then the other thing too is he would literally be on there. And so when we say that we are having to use any money to fill on site, I'm taken back, because there were days that he would see it and he would click and it was gone. And so then, and nothing would come up. And so I don't know when if they ever turn off that app at a certain time, and then it has to get filled by site.
Yeah, that's a good
teachers.
question. I believe if he was seeing it, that would be like typically a vacancy that's then picked up last minute. because the internal sub-coverage is usually kind of piecemeal. This year, there were very few instances where, okay, we have nobody here, all hands on deck, and really kind of just backfilling it like the way that it was previously. I mean, it still happened, but to a much lesser extent. A lot of these coverages are like fifth and sixth period, in the afternoon, something that our EduStaff substitutes aren't picking up because it's not a full day, perhaps, so.
But do they turn it off at a certain time
No,
in the morning? It's constantly. So like if somebody called in 10 minutes before the day, it would still come up through EduStaff?
if the employee puts it into Red Rover, that's what indicates that's where substitutes go in and pick the job up. So EduStaff doesn't actually do any part of that. It's the employee who requests the substitute coverage through Red Rover. That's the software that handles it. That the substitutes have access to that request and can pick them up.
All right, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Any additional questions?
I just have a quick question, just because you brought it up about getting cleared. I'm assuming everyone in EduStaff has to have the sub license, so part of the clearance might be, not that I want to throw anyone under the bus, but the state background check, right? That they're waiting for the background check to come back?
Yeah, there are people, like, they cannot work as a substitute teacher until they have that license secured. There is a small amount of paperwork that people need to get completed, and then a drug screening as well. So sometimes that holds things up for scheduling, but.
All right. Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you coming. Agenda item number 11, discussion and possible action to approve the metrics for measuring the superintendent's goals for 2026 calendar year. This is for possible action with Superintendent Fueling in the hot seat.
Thank you, President Walt. So I, at a previous meeting, the board approved superintendent goals for the year, but asked that it come back with, again, kind of what are the outcome, if you want to call them metrics, but what are the outcomes that we're looking for success? I tried to, I got a little help to talk through some of these, but also tried to find some things that were really a little more concrete, I think, that I am hopeful that the board will agree that they would be worthy here. So under 1A, one of the things in conversations with Mr. Bringhurst and Mrs. Perkins talking about the MTSS rollout, and again, we have come so far with this. One of the things that we are really interested in is this has been going on for years, and has taken an enormous lift to get to where we are, but getting to a point where now we can actually track the interventions across school sites that are occurring, so that we can start gathering information on their success, what is working, what is not working, what is actually being implemented. And so within Infinite Campus, we have a specific tab, an MTSS tab, where that sort of information is entered and tracked. That has started rolling out, but there is still a lot of work to get that to become to have it become consistently used both on the academic side and on the behavioral side. And so as that has slowly started rolling out this year, but the goal would be, and again, it's kind of hard to think about this, and I realize we're late into 2026 already, but these goals are calendar year goals. So we're really talking about something that by December of 2026, I can come back to you and report on. So basically within the first semester next year, that we have at each of our elementary schools, that they are fully utilizing this tracking system so that we can start looking back at the interventions that are in place and look to their success or level of success, I guess, in terms of intervening with our kids getting tier 2 or tier 3 level support, which will be incredibly beneficial for us and across our schools, because if there's certain practices that are being more effective, that is information that can be shared, and then it can be shared amongst the schools. And if certain practices we find are generally not effective, we know that potentially we eliminate those from consideration at all, because we're just not seeing that being helpful. So to me, this is it is a very needed step and significant step in refining this and getting better at it. And so I feel like this is a step. It's a it's kind of a yes or no in terms of gauging success, but it is something that we are going to be actively working on next year. And hopefully the goal is that by the end of the first semester, that at least at the elementary schools where we have come really far with our MTSS systems, that we would have this in place to consistently be able to review how we are using these interventions, and again, their success. Getting down to B, 1B, and this is going back to the PLC work that Mr. Bringhurst is going to be leading district-wide. One of the things that that he has done is, and again, this is now going to be rolling out here over the first semester. He has put out a survey, this baseline PLC perception survey. So this is a survey of staff asking them basically their current experience with PLCs, the types of activities that are happening during PLCs, the types of questions that are being asked within PLCs, and how their perception of how well this is being done at this point. That same survey is going to be happening again as we get toward the end of the first semester next year. So the one thing to note with this, because if I were you, I would be saying, well, if you're doing this like pre-survey and a post-survey, wouldn't the goal really to be to see that the perceptions have improved, that people feel like they're doing a better job at it? And the answer is yes, sort of. And the reason is, and this actually came up in the initial implementation of MTSS, I've talked about this tiered fidelity inventory. And that is sort of a perception too of how we are implementing interventions across the different different tier 2, tier 3 interventions. One of the things that happened, we noticed with that data, and our friends at UNR said, you'll expect to see this, is that when that survey was first given, our staff generally thought that a lot of these things were already happening. As we surveyed later and they learned what it really is supposed to look like, their scores actually dropped. Like they basically were saying, actually, we're not doing a lot of these things. Because as they started understanding what these interventions look like and how they're supposed to happen, they realized that while we're not really doing this stuff, later it did start coming back as we recognize what these interventions look like. We knew that we were actually doing them. It was just in that initial kind of perception of it, we thought we were doing it. Later to really learn that, kind of. And so with this, I think, I don't want to go out and say that it's absolutely going to increase, because I don't, as we have staff learning more about what PLCs should look like, this initial survey happening in the spring, and then a survey in this at the end of the first semester next year, people may think there's some things that they're doing well, and as they learn more about it, realize we're doing okay, right? Maybe we're not as high as we thought we were. But I think the important point being that we are collecting that data, and it's something that we can report back on. And I think Mr. Bringhurst, as he is leading this work, will really be able to share that information with our principals and just with our teams to show like we are learning. Like, I think it's effectively almost, if it goes down to some extent, like we're really learning what this work is. So it's not necessarily a bad thing if it goes down, but at least we'll have that data. But I think in the same way that we have this tiered fidelity inventory for MTSS, even if it goes down, we would expect in the long run that we would expect that to swing back up as people are becoming comfortable with the vocabulary, comfortable with the activities happening within those PLCs. For the full alignment piece, again, that's really a long-term goal. I don't really want to say we expect student achievement to improve by 2% per year, growth to go up 4% per year. Like I don't know what that exactly that's going to look like. I think in the bigger picture, we just want to see that everything is improving. I don't know what the percentage is, but that we're seeing increased achievement, better student growth, better behavior, I guess, downswing in behavior data, ultimately. Under the strategic plan, again, this just trying to get something that's a little more concrete. And quite honestly, I don't know exactly what this looks like. And I think until we get into our first meeting and seeing how we progress through it as it's being facilitated. But those community connections events, normally we would have 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring. So I believe we'll have at least 2 meetings and hopefully, hopefully we would be able to bring back at least an initial draft of where we are with the strategic plan, what that might look like. I have a feeling that we're actually going to have more than 2 meetings because there's going to be a lot of work and data to get through and a lot of conversations to get through. But I think at least as a gauge that something is happening, if that's really the goal, that knowing that there will be these kind of meetings going on, and I'm hoping even by December, not again, being a draft, but having a draft of a potential strategic plan coming back to you. Again, I don't see the next version of the strategic plan looking like the current version. It is a robust, all-inclusive document. And again, the trend that we're seeing nationwide is really trying to slim that thing down to what are those most important points and not necessarily getting into all the nitty-gritty detail of every one of them, but trying to stay high level with those big focus points for districts that they are working on. For the legislative advocacy, we talked a little bit about this last time. And again, you have to remember we're talking about reviewing these December of this year, not after the school year or after the legislative session. And so the legislative session doesn't even start until 2027. So to me, what I think would be a good starting point is a good starting point for the legislative piece is we are hoping to put together a bill draft request. That bill draft, every school district is given 1 bill draft request if they like, except for Clark and Washoe get 2 because they're more important than the rest. But to bring a bill draft request to you, that is something that you actually have to approve. It's not just something that I can come up with or we can come up with. But so you'll actually have, we'll be having a conversation about it. It's something that you would take action on. So it'd be very clear to you that this is happening. And I think really that kind of sets us up, like this is action towards advocacy in the legislative session. And it just kind of sets up like that's a good, I think we have to have the bill draft. If you approve it, I believe we have to have it into LCB by October. So it's likely something that we're talking about in September. It's either October or November, we have to have it to LCB. But so it's something that's visible, we're talking about publicly. And so I think as like an initial step in terms of legislative advocacy, that would be a good goal. And it's something it's a concrete outcome that you can point to, that we're making progress. We're trying to do something. And then that will set up going into 2027. I would expect legislative advocacy to continue into 2027 as a new superintendent goal, but the desired outcome or metric, how we're trying to measure success, would likely look different at that point. So the goal was to try to, again, make some of this a little more concrete, and something that is easy to see. Some of you hopefully will be a part of some of this, especially with the strategic plan piece. But something that's easy to point to and like, yes, this is what we want to see, moving in the right direction. And so that's what I got at this point. And I would,
Okay.
if you have any, I can always bring up Mr. Bringhurst.
Okay. Well, I do have a question. So we're looking, the language that we would be moving on, approving, is in the red.
Oh, correct. That's a good clarification. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so you've changed no black. The black is strike through. It's the red that we're going.
Yeah,
we're approving.
except for in 1A, there was a request to change, because I had the word, I can't remember what the word was in 1A. It was, but we changed it to like continued improvement or improvement of these systems. There was something else that was there, but the board had asked that I change that, so I put that new word in there.
Okay. Okay. All right, do we have any questions? All right, go ahead, Trustee Romero. No, or Trustee Roberts. Did you have one question, Romero? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. It's a little more easy to have something to look at what we should be looking for as you report again. I just wanted to, I really like the 1A, that consistent support when moving between schools. I think that's really important, especially I know you've brought it up before that does happen a lot in this district. So thank you for your attention to that. And then as far as the bill draft, this is a conversation for another time. So just a yes or no, but do you have ideas on what you're looking at presenting? I take that as a yes. That smile.
I will say, there are many things
Okay.
that we would
That you've
consider.
thought about. Okay.
Yeah.
And I've never been a part of that before. Is that strictly within the school district? Do you reach out to families, to staff to see what kinds of things they're looking for change on, or how does that work?
Sure. So one of the things that, so I would say generally, we are looking from our own experience and conversations in the schools more so as to like what the reality is on the ground. And either coming up with an idea for something that we think might be of benefit. And so the example I would use of that, not the last session, but the prior session, it was right after I started in this role, we brought a bill draft. And the idea was, sorry, there's a little fly here. The idea was something it was called innovation districts. And really this was sort of taken from the state of Texas where they do this. And really what it was is districts can apply to the state education agency. So basically like NDE here, but the Texas Education Agency. You could apply to the Texas Education Agency to be relieved of some laws if you had a good reason, is what it comes down to. So just for example, in Texas, or let's say in Nevada, like we have there's class size ratios at the elementary level we're required to hit. If for some reason we thought there was this great benefit to increasing the cap on 5th grade from 25 to 30. I don't know why, and please, I'm not saying to do that, but in Texas, districts can they can apply to do that sort of thing as long as they have a justification for what it is. And if the state education agency approves it, then they effectively can violate the law because they've gone through this process. And so we tried bringing that here. It wasn't very well received, and so it died. But so it's a process we have gone through before. But again, it's something that you have to approve before I bring it there. the other side of that then is if there is an existing law, like that's the idea of like trying to add something to provide benefit. You can also potentially say, look, we really don't like this. We want to get rid of this law, or we want to modify it because it's too onerous, too cumbersome. We think it's detrimental to what our schools are doing. So you can kind of, just if you're trying to improve the system in some way.
Trustee Ramirez?
Yeah, so on the strategic plan, your goal number 2, is it possible to add 5-year strategic plan? It is a 5-year strategic plan that we're going to be working on, correct?
So thank you, Trustee Ramirez. It's a good question. And historically, the first strategic plan this district created, I believe, was in it was either 2012 or 2007 going into through 2012. So a 5-year strategic plan was historically what we've had. Working with some of these we had that conference back in the fall where these other districts came to us. And what I've learned with some of these other high-performing districts across the country is that they're actually moving more towards 10-year plans, but allowing for some flexibility within that. So, for example, if there was something that we said, this is the vision for 2020 or 2036, let's say, because it's 10 years down the road, and there's something that we really value. But we get 6 years down the road and something changes, and maybe that isn't as much of a priority anymore as something else that the board has been discussing, the board has been talking about, and allowing for that to effectively take its place or maybe be added in addition to. So it's just right now, I think we view strategic plans as like these concrete documents once they're created. But I think just due to the nature of how things change, what we're seeing is longer strategic plans, but allowing for some flexibility within that. So I would say I would ask not to put the 5-year in there, although it very well may end up being a 5-year in the end.
The other thing that you and I talked about, the idea of perhaps including on 1A the a measurable outcome on data from a year prior on the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 to identify if our numbers on tier 2 and 3 are increasing or decreasing. Is that possible for you to add? Or
I'd
is
say
it too premature?
it will be possible once we have this sort of collection process in place. Then it will become really easy to compare that over time. I mean, ultimately, we would like to see the need for tier 2 and tier 3 interventions to decrease, because on the tier 1 side, just the base side of everything we do is just that good. I don't think tier 2, tier 3 necessarily ever goes to 0. But we by doing this, we will be able to start giving you that kind of information. And actually, if I could too, Trustee Roberts brought up the benefit of being able to be consistent across schools when kids do move interventions. This is actually too, if kids decide, if their family moves up to Reno, this kind of information actually can be shared with Washoe County schools as well. So, I mean, in the end, we're trying to support kids, right, wherever they are. And so they can actually see them, what are the kind of interventions that this kid has been put in place to support this kiddo, what's worked, what hasn't worked for them. So that's really good information for them in the end too, to be able to share with other districts if they do move.
Trustee Clapham? Trustee Pierce? Trustee Varner?
Thank you for bringing these goals forward and getting some kind of measurement if you meet them or not. Now, on the end one, the legislative advocacy, I think you're selling yourself a little bit short just by saying you're going to make a bill draft request, because I know that being president of NAS, you're going to be highly involved in legislative matters So I think, that's a good point, I think, that you could expound upon. Then I just was wondering, and I think you kind of touched upon it, doesn't matter what the bill draft is, but you've already covered that, so thank you. Going back up to paragraph B, and this is just a minor thing, but where it's in red, baseline PLC perception survey to be completed by staff, I would just say put in spring 2026. And then when you talk about in the late fall 2026 to gauge impressions of how PLC work is impacting attending to students' needs and learning. Do you see any kind of data that would be brought forward to show how it's really impacting? Because if you just do a survey, people could say it's working great when it's not.
I'm going to phone a friend here to help me out a little bit.
We're always glad to hear from him.
Yeah, well, and Mr. Bringhurst and his friends have developed this survey, but again, we will certainly be able to report back on what the data is. And again, there is some concern of, I don't know that the data will actually get better between this spring and next fall, but at least we now have the data so that as we get more comfortable with the PLC work happening, hopefully people will see the benefit of that. So I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, Brandon Bringhurst for the record. So I echo what Superintendent Fueling has said. We have started gathering this baseline data, which is, I think, going to be incredibly helpful for us. We do anticipate with some of those questions, we would probably see a drop, and that drop we anticipate being a result of them better understanding the definition of what we're truly trying to achieve in a PLC. We'll explain that a little bit more as we get there. Some of those questions, kind of depending on how those questions are worded, we would like to see an increase in them. I would add to that additionally, we will be meeting on the 22nd and 23rd, putting together what we call a guiding coalition that will be working on the PLC process, and part of that the work of that guiding coalition will be putting together a timeline of implementation. And so with that timeline of implementation, we will have some better metrics, some better data to look at and say, well, here was our timeline of implementation, similar to what we've done with the MTSS process over the years, and we want to get to benchmark 1 by this time and benchmark 2 by this time. We'll be able to share that with you. So that's a timeline that we'll be developing this summer as we work with a trainer on the PLC process and get together a group of our administrators and teachers that will be part of that, part of guiding that work. I think the other piece that we intend to bring forward to you in that timeframe with that data is to share with you. If you remember, we had some wonderful discussions about our school calendar that we're going into for this next school year, and we are super excited about it. But you all rightly asked, what are we going to be measuring to see if this calendar is making an impact? And so this PLC implementation timeline, as well as the perception survey data that we'll be bringing to you, will be part of what we'll be looking at to see, is the calendar having the desired outcomes?
And I'm glad you're looking at that, because one of my concerns, I think, concerns of the board was the PLC as part of that calendar, is if they're going to be used properly or correctly, because in the past, I think the information we received said that they were not consistently used properly, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Right, and that definitely is part of what we want to be measuring is, a good measure is if I, as a teacher, feel like this collaborative time is helping me be a better teacher, right? And we can get a lot more sophisticated than that, and we will be more sophisticated than that in some of our questions. But the bottom line, I trust our practitioners, and if our practitioners are saying this collaborative time and this professional development time that we have is helping me deliver better instruction, I think that's valid data for us to consider.
Yeah, well, a couple of us sat through some of the PLCs, and I don't know if it was because we were there, but they seemed like they're being used effectively. And that's what I like to see across the board, so thank you. Just one other real quick thing, I'm sorry. On the strategic plan, I'm wondering, if we're looking at a 10-year strategic plan, 5 to 10 years, we want it to be the best that we can do for that period of time. And I hate to spend money, you know that. But is there, is there any idea that we may be able to use a facilitator to help us through that process? Because I think that may be beneficial.
Thank you, Trustee Varner. We have talked about it. We're going to be here coming later into this month, really talking about what this looks like going into the fall as we start having those meetings. I think it's entirely possible and almost likely that we would use someone, and that cost would be borne out of my budget. So I have money set that we can use for that if necessary. So I think we need to do some more planning about what this looks like next year. The meeting we had in late spring that Mr. Bringhurst really helped lead with me, I think was really informative for us in terms of getting some really good feedback from families about what they want out of schools. And so we're going to be going back just to talk about that and start trying to plot out what this will look like. And it may be that really having sort of a third-party facilitator helping that process would really help move it along.
Yeah, I think it'd be beneficial. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, great, thank you. Mine have been addressed, and so I am ready for a motion, unless there's any follow-up questions. Right, okay, so this is an action item. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the metrics for measuring the superintendent's goals for the 2026 calendar year.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I missed that. Who seconded? Okay, sorry, my head was down. Yeah, I'll sound the same. All right, so we have a motion by Trustee Clappin, second by Trustee Peterson. Is there public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 12. This is discussion and possible action to cancel the November 24th, 2026 and the December 22nd, 2026 school board meetings. This is for possible action and presented by me. November is Thanksgiving, December is Christmas. So who wants to be here those weeks? Any questions? All right, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the
Wait,
motion.
yes, please make your motion, sorry.
I'll make the motion. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees cancel the November 24th, 2026 and December 22, 2026 school board meetings.
Do I have a second? So I have a motion by Trustee Varner, a second by Trustee Ramirez. Public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We have agenda item number 13. This is approval of the consent agenda. This is for possible action. Have you all reviewed it? All right, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved.
All right, so I have a
Well, I'll
motion.
second.
I have a motion by Trustee Clapham, a second by Trustee Roberts. Do I have public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Number 14 is informational items. This is for discussion only. No action will be taken. Did you all have any questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 15. This is a request for future agenda items. Do we have any? Yes.
I would, because we've talked about attendance, staff attendance, and we've talked about PLC, especially as it deals with the strategic plan, having a history with staff not participating in PLCs, right? Taking the time off or scheduling their doctor's appointments on there. I would love to see how we're going to track next year with the new calendar, having this PLC time built in. Are we tracking the attendance and participation of the staff? Because we know that there's, you know, situations where we have low attendance.
Okay. Yes.
Trustee excuse me, Trustee Stuckey, would you actually like that as an agenda item, or would you like us, like, say, as we get into the semester, just to be able to report back on what we're seeing maybe somewhere down the line? I guess
Can I say both? Because I would like to see how your plan would be that you are going to track it next year, just to say, this is how we're going to track it, and then give us like status occasionally on, are they really participating, you know, in PLC, because we have dedicated time in the school year for it.
That is great. Yes, I would like to see that plan, possibly if we can get that before the school year starts. And then possibly do like maybe a quarterly update on that. Okay, sounds great. Any others? All right, so then I do. Why do you guys always gasp over there? And you may all know how this works, but I don't. So it was in our budget, in our packet, and it's the transfer report. And so there seems to be a large amount transferred, and I'm just not knowledgeable on that. So if we could get agenda item just to teach us, maybe just me, the large budget transfer explanation report, because there was like 1.7 million transferred, and I just don't understand that. So if I can get that, that would be great. Yes, I think that's it. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.